Civilian Hokage, unstoppable from the start with 8 gates. Hello again, dear adventurers of the multiverse. Thanks for joining us once more on this epic journey. Remember, this story is pure science fiction from our wild imagination, so don't go trying to summon dragons in your backyard. The rights of this amazing novel belong entirely to its original author, we are only the narrators. Do you want more adventures? Show some love to our YouTube channel with a subscription and a like, and if you want exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting for you with open arms. Chapter 251, Yukito, the Tailed Beast. Suzumiya Musashi's physique exceeded Yukito's expectations. As the battle progressed, she felt her body could no longer endure it. It hurt terribly. The opponent's power was too great, he didn't even seem human. She hadn't expected to be defeated by this handsome man in terms of physical prowess. That guy, AI, is like that, isn't he? This thought crossed her mind. To determine who was physically superior between Suzumiya Musashi and the Hokage. In short, she couldn't bear it any longer. It all happened so fast. Only a little over a minute had passed since the battle began. After a fierce clash, the wooden figure recoiled. In the space between their bodies, he took a deep breath, and then currents of blue chakra flowed from his body. Suzumiya Musashi stabilized and observed the scene calmly. Are you finally going to use his power? The wooden man replied, yes. Your strength is very good, worthy of him using his power. As he spoke, a tail composed of chakra generated and swung behind him. Suzumiya Musashi watched the tail behind the other person and studied it closely. It doesn't seem like an easy start. So he said, stop wasting time. The man's mouth curved slightly, and his handsome face radiated light for an instant. If you want to see his full power, it's not impossible. It depends on whether you're qualified or not. Really, said Suzumiya Musashi. Then we'll have to wait and see. As he spoke, lightning burst from his body, quickly enveloping him like a jet of water. A fairy at that moment. The wooden man narrowed his eyes slightly, and his expression turned serious. You really have aces up your sleeve, and this lightning release. Are you sure you're a Konoha ninja? Suzumiya Musashi didn't answer Yukito's question. Surrounded by lightning, his speed increased even more. With a flash of light, it appeared before Yumu ran in the blink of an eye. Boom! Yukito's eyes widened. At the critical moment, she used her tail to protect herself and narrowly blocked Suzumiya Musashi's swift attack. But the powerful force emanating from the tailed beast's armor made her click her lip. Is the person in front of me really a Konoha ninja? The Jonin of Kumagakure can't be that boastful. The twin-tailed beast's sharp, chakra-infused claws suddenly grabbed Suzumiya Musashi's chest, but he dodged. Then, the dark blue tail lunged suddenly. Suzumiya Musashi's eyes opened slightly. He watched the tail's trajectory and, seizing the opportunity, infused chakra into his right fist, and his supernatural power exploded. Boom! There was another explosion. The wooden man shot backward, his body propelling the air and drawing a long ripple across the sea surface. A great deal of water separated on either side and, after a while, merged again, generating even larger waves. Boom! Crash! Water vapor extended nearly 100 meters from the wooden figure, his right hand resting in the water, his right leg slightly bent, and his long left leg extended. With 3 points of support, he finally managed to stabilize himself in the sea. His face wore an extremely solemn expression. Suzumiya Musashi didn't pursue him, so he had time to turn around and observe his tail. How long? Yumu thought secretly. It had been a long time since anyone had been able to break through his tailed beast cloak. You're right. He looked at Suzumiya Musashi in the distance and said earnestly, your strength is worth all my effort. He did his best to contain the emotion of meeting the man God had given him. When facing an opponent of equal caliber, fighting wholeheartedly demonstrates respect. The wooden man's chakra fluctuation steadily increased. Blue flames continued to erupt from his body, swirling around him. As the flames grew, the wooden man's momentum also intensified. The flames quickly enveloped his striking body and then rose into the air. 5 meters, 10 meters, 20 meters. Soon, they reached a height of about 50 meters. Suzumiya Musashi looked incredibly small in comparison. He raised his head, silently observing the giant before him, and said softly, 2 tails, after the 9 tails and the 1 tail. This was the first time he had observed a fully tailed beast at such close range. This kind of visual impact is difficult for ordinary people to grasp. 50 meters. Based on his previous height of 3 meters, 50 meters is nearly the height of a government building or a school's main building. Now, such a massive creature stood directly before him, baring its fangs and claws, its intent to attack palpable. "I'm coming." The tone was gentle, yet the sound was deafening. A huge flame erupted, and as the wave suddenly parted, the two tails' enormous body, with unparalleled power, lunged at Suzumiya Musashi. The tailed beast's frontal assault roused him completely. The sea surface beneath his feet collapsed with a deafening roar, and the powerful force propelled him forward at a speed surpassing that of the tailed beast. He poured his supernatural powers into his fists, and the next instant, they collided violently with the enormous feline's claws. Boom! Between heaven and earth, only the sound of thunder could be heard. Above the sea, a hurricane suddenly erupted, tearing through layers of waves, shattering reefs, and driving back the clouds. The two tails' enormous body stopped abruptly, and at the same time, Suzumiya Musashi's body shot backward, splitting the sea's surface in two. It wasn't until he was several hundred meters away that he managed to regain his balance. "Very powerful," boomed the wooden man's voice. "But you flew too far." Swoosh! Boom! Boom! The raccoon cat thrashed across the sea, lightning flashed like a tapestry, and a man and a beast, two figures with extreme differences, began to battle in the water. For an instant, the waves rose in an apocalyptic scene, and the steaming water vapor emitted rainbow lights in the sunlight. Boom 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 boom. Chapter 252 Attacking the lower part of her body. As the battle progressed, Suzumiya Musashi grew increasingly excited, a satisfied expression spreading across his face. The wooden man, on the other hand, grew more and more frightened as he was defeated. How could he be so powerful? Was it the effect of his supposed magic, or was he truly that powerful? The opponent's attack power and speed were undoubtedly on par with Ai's. Especially his lightning-activated armor, which made her feel as if she had seen a ghost. Perhaps the only thing Ai could surpass him in was defense. Boom! The ferocious cat claw attack missed and fell into the sea. Suzumiya Musashi transformed into lightning, instantly dodging the wooden man's attack and sliding behind him. Water style, wave technique, waves condensed into a thick column of water in the air and shot out from behind the wooden man. Yumijin, startled, controlled the enormous body of the tailed beast, leaping precariously, letting a thick column of water pass beneath him, avoiding being submerged. Bastard! Youmuran, furious, lowered his head slightly. The next instant, a massive burst of energy concentrated in the air, and a dark purple ball appeared before the enormous mouth. Boom! The dark purple ball shot out with a thunderous roar, and Suzumiya Musashi, naturally, didn't dare confront it. Although he believed himself strong, he didn't dare be so arrogant as to face the tailed beast's ball. The lightning chakra exploded like a trail of gunpowder, and in a flash, he was instantly knocked back, still affected by the residual power of the ball's explosion, rolling across the surface of the sea. Seeing him dodge the tailed beast's ball, Yukito wasn't surprised. "Kumagakure, only in battle, I will not disappoint you. I stake my reputation as a Yumijin, I will undoubtedly defeat you." The condensation time of the second tailed beast ball was slightly slower than the first, and then it shot towards Suzumiya Musashi. It created sonic booms in its path. The wooden man stopped where he was and watched intently. As he watched whether his opponent could dodge this second tailed beast ball, he also worried. "I didn't hold back, so that it wouldn't kill the other person, right?" This was the man to whom he had begged the Sage of Six Paths at the cost of 10 years of his life. As his thoughts raced, his eyes suddenly opened. A bright white disk suddenly rose above the sea where Suzumiya Musashi stood. It collided with a tailed beast ball. Buzz, boom, in the air, an extremely powerful energy exploded. Fire, lightning, and shattered blades of wind swept in all directions. At sea, the storm continued, and turbid waves rose. It was like a small sun falling in the sky. For an instant, the sky lost its color, and the sea of clouds warped. Meters in height in the blink of an eye. Even the wooden man retreated amidst the terrifying waves. This man, Youmuran watched the scene in amazement and murmured, "He's good." Buzz, amidst the waves and flames, a huge disc suddenly sliced through the air and shot toward the astonished Youmuran. This is the second Kiyuan slash. In the state of immortal arts, he can control the trajectory of the absolute wind Kiyuan slash to a certain extent through the natural energy of the air. When the first absolute wind Kiyuan slash was launched, Suzumiya Musashi had already anticipated the outcome. The tailed beast ball must shatter. The second attack was secretly condensed and launched at that moment. Give me 2 tailed beast balls, and I'll fire 2 Kiyuan slashes at you. It's a fair and reasonable exchange of favors. How cruel, heart. Yu Ren uttered the second half of the sentence as he watched the enormous, gleaming white disc hurtling toward his lower body. Whether it was the terrifying power of this giant ninjutsu that could counter the tailed beast ball, or the profound sense of crisis emanating from the depths of his heart, he knew he couldn't face this ninjutsu head-on, not even by transforming into a tailed beast. Fortunately, the trajectory of this gigantic wind disc was easy to predict, allowing him to muster enough energy to calmly dodge it. Seizing the opportunity, the wooden man flipped like a raccoon, his massive body suddenly leaping and rolling to the side. As he rolled, he kept thinking about how to face Suzumiya Musashi. If only physical strength mattered, he could handle him with ease. Whether it was his enormous size or the partial elemental nature of the tailed beasts, it allowed him to maintain a significant advantage when facing physical attacks. However, this gigantic wind ninjutsu, it was different. If it were ordinary ninjutsu, it would only tickle the tailed beast, but this giant wind jutsu is incredibly powerful. Not even the tailed beast could withstand 2 blows. Why did Konoha have such a physical ninja? When did such a powerful giant wind escape technique appear? Yu Ren was secretly confused. As she thought, she suddenly realized that something was wrong. A sense of crisis washed over her again. Before she could deduce the outcome, she felt a sudden, sharp pain in her lower body. Meow, through the waves, the Zetsu Fenki Yuanzan, under Suzumiya Musashi's control, flashed past the wooden man. The cat's enormous tail was severed clean off. At the same time, Suzumiya Musashi, who had prepared himself beforehand, lunged forward and performed the sealing technique he had been preparing for so long. Then, a portion of the blue chakra from the severed tail was sealed into the scroll. This is safe, Suzumiya Musashi was secretly delighted. With this portion of chakra, he could study the peculiar properties of the flame, and it would also be possible to advance his research on blood. Just as he was rejoicing, a shout from the wooden man suddenly sounded behind him. "You kid!" Suzumiya Musashi jumped and turned his head, only to meet the furious glare of the raccoon cat, transformed from a wooden man. "It's just outrageous." There was a hint of resentment in Yu Ren's angry voice. This man was simply too much. Even though most of Yalu's severed tail would return to its main body after dissipating into thin air, he still felt shame mixed with anger. "I'll teach you a lesson," Yu Ren said as he swiftly crossed the sea and charged towards Suzumiya Musashi. Suzumiya Musashi, who had already achieved his goal, naturally wasn't afraid. He planned to fight his opponent for another 300 rounds, but his expression suddenly changed. Oops. He's finished. His immortal art state vanished rapidly. His immortal art's energy was depleted. On the other hand, the humiliated Yu Ren was rapidly approaching. Followed by ninjutsu, Kirigaki no jutsu. Accompanied by a faint cry, waves rose above the sea, and mist instantly spread. The mist obscured Yukido's vision, and she was furious. Enraged, she ignored him and stepped into the fog. Under the blazing heat of the dark blue flame, the fog evaporated in an instant. But when her sight returned, she could only see in the distance that Suzumiya Musashi had become a black dot, growing smaller and smaller. Damn it! Chapter 253 Accident. Although he heard the furious roars of the wooden man behind him, Suzumiya Musashi didn't care, and his legs were as swift as the wind. A real man. 5 minutes. Hit and run. His primary objective was the opponent's chakra. Secondly, after a fight, he only wanted to rid himself of the resentment of shame, but he had no intention of actually killing the opponent. He was no longer a Jinchuriki, so naturally, the best thing for him was to escape first. "You're bothering me. I'll cut off your tail." It's all safe now. Seeing Suzumiya Musashi begin to flee, Yukiro, who was chasing him, stopped pursuing him and instead felt a little anxious. "I can't let this man get away. Fighting is fury, being furious is being furious, but this is the man the Sage of Six Paths gave him, and he won't let him go no matter what." The enormous civet cat continued running through the sea. In close quarters combat, the wooden man wasn't as skilled as Suzumiya Musashi, who had activated the lightning release. However, in long-range pursuits, his enormous size gave him the advantage. Suzumiya Musashi, in the lead, saw her relentlessly pursuing him and panicked, so he ran even faster. The route Uzumaki Karin and the others had taken suddenly veered east, moving away from the land of lightning. Don't chase me. If you chase me again, I'll use my ultimate attack. I'm telling you, when I get there, even I'll be scared." The wooden man ignored her and said, "Stop, don't go." If this continues, Suzumiya Musashi was secretly anxious. At that moment, he suddenly heard a shout from the wooden man behind him. "Stop! Stop!" Seeing that Suzumiya Musashi was still walking, he slowed down and shouted, "We can't go any further." Suzumiya Musashi didn't take it seriously and thought he was talking nonsense. "Stop it!" Yukido's voice behind him sounded somewhat nervous, and even Suzumiya Musashi was a little confused. "In this terrain, I have no advantage, so there's no need to worry, right?" Thinking this, the distorted sound from the wooden man made him slow his pace a little. What a pity it's too late. Weakly, an invisible barrier passed by his body. The next instant, the landscape in front of him changed drastically. The blue sea and sky disappeared in an instant, becoming dark reefs and rocky walls, surrounded by jagged rocks and rushing rapids. Even Suzumiya Musashi was astonished by this sudden change. Then, a dark torrent surged up, and the chakra beneath his feet wasn't enough to keep him afloat. He took a deep breath and finally managed to adapt to the subterranean current surrounding him. He released his perception and assessed the situation. A dark, gloomy aura emanated from the underground current surrounding his body. He barely opened his eyes, but could only see a dark mist with a faint shadow of a reef. The same marine area as before? Suzumiya Musashi cursed inwardly. Then he carefully extended his tongue and licked the seawater. It tasted slightly salty. "We should still be in the sea, but we don't know how far we are from where we were a moment ago." Recalling Umaran's reminder, he finally understood that the other party wasn't lying, but was actually reminding him. "Get out of this damned place." The chakra method for staying afloat no longer worked, so he stretched his body and swam continuously underwater like a fish, following the underground current and avoiding the surrounding reefs. Just then, he opened his eyes wide. Through the dim light at the bottom of the water, he vaguely saw a shadow. It was so fast that it disappeared in the blink of an eye. This time, he finally saw it clearly. A creature resembling an eel. It was about 3 meters long, completely black, and appeared to have some fine lines. I couldn't tell if they were scales or something else. The rounded front part of its body resembled the head of a catfish, but smaller. What the hell is this? Suzumiya Musashi thought to himself and didn't act rashly. It was a bad idea not to act rashly. Besides, he wouldn't be able to hold his breath underwater for long if he acted. But he didn't make a move. The thing seemed to have detected an intruder and suddenly turned around and swam toward him. Flexible body and extremely fast speed. Suzumiya Musashi was secretly on guard. The opponent suddenly turned. Then, a long black tail swooped down on him. Crack, when this thing attacks, it's much faster than when it swims. Suzumiya Musashi bent down to grab it, but only touched the extremely slippery part of its tail and failed to catch it. Then, the cold, long tail struck his cheek. He expected to be slapped by some unknown fish in some unidentifiable place. Especially since the opponent's attack was so ruthless, it not only hurt but also caused a numbing pain. He extended his right hand and was about to kill this guy with a surge of chakra. At that moment, a sudden wave of water appeared behind him, and then a hand grabbed his arm tightly. Suzumiya Musashi suddenly turned around. What caught his attention was the worried look on the wooden man's face. The latter grabbed his right arm, shook his head gently, and pulled him aside. Suzumiya Musashi hesitated for a moment and then let the other party take him away. "I don't know where this place is. It seems Umuran should know more than him." A wooden man pulled him forward as they continued moving. Whenever he encountered a cave entrance or a fork in the path, he would pause for a moment and then find the correct direction. Suzumiya Musashi assumed the other knew the way, so he silently followed. Unexpectedly, after 10 minutes, the two were still in the water. "Are you trying to suffocate me here?" Suzumiya Musashi thought. 5 minutes later, guided by the wooden man, he finally saw a ray of light. Crash, breathing heavily. Chapter 254, Cave Space, Emperor Serpent. Although he had surfaced, he still couldn't see the sun. Stone walls surrounded him, forming a space tens of meters in radius above his head. Scattered points of fluoride on the rock walls emitted a faint light, and an intense aura of thunder emanated from the fluoride. The light he saw just below the water came from these stones. Where's this place? With oxygen re-injected into his body, Suzumiya Musashi finally found the strength to speak. What's it to you where this is? Youmuren turned and glared at him. Didn't I just remind you to stop immediately? Suzumiya Musashi said. But you're chasing me, Yukito said angrily. Why would I chase you if you didn't run? And asked, then, what is this place? Why did you stop me from killing that fish just now? Youmuren snorted coldly. Kill it. If you kill it, you don't have to think about escaping. Why? Suzumiya Musashi asked, confused. Is that thing really that powerful? Tell me about it. Youmuren rolled his eyes, annoyed, but finally said, it's the Emperor Snake. Emperor Snake, I haven't heard of it. Is it that good? Youmuren said, it's normal that you haven't heard of it, even in the great countries and ninja villages. I'm afraid few people know about this thing. Even in the land of lightning, there are only a few who know about it. Suzumiya Musashi asked, the fact that few people know about it means your reproductive capacity isn't very good. You still haven't told me? Is this thing powerful? Youmuren said, it's powerful, but more importantly, this thing can cause a lot of trouble. The Emperor Viper's body is strong, and its speed is extremely fast. Even a Jonin would have difficulty facing it. Besides physical attacks, they are also skilled at manipulating lightning. Suzumiya Musashi understood and said, I was wondering why my body felt so numb just now. The wooden man said, just be thankful. The Emperor Viper was only testing you. If it truly controlled lightning to attack, it would be much more difficult than before. Its lightning contains potent toxins. If you are struck, the consequences will not be good. More importantly, this thing can travel alone. If it actually initiates a battle, it will summon companions. Once it is surrounded by a group of Emperor Vipers, it can only expect the worst. Suzumiya Musashi nodded slightly and then asked doubtfully, you are so hostile toward me, it would be just what you wished for if I were killed. Why did you follow me, Youmuren? Seeing Suzumiya Musashi's puzzled expression, he turned his head and said, I'm afraid you'll die here and pollute the sea. Suzumiya Musashi, after all, the other party had just helped him, so he didn't dwell on it too much and focused on the crucial matter. So, where's this place? How do we get out? The wooden man thought for a moment and said, I can't tell you where this place is. It's a troublesome place anyway, so you shouldn't go in. As for how to get out, just follow me. As long as you're careful, getting out shouldn't be a problem. Suzumiya Musashi still had many questions swirling in his head, but in the end, he could only keep them to himself. After all, the other group was a ninja from Kumagakure, and some questions were destined to remain unanswered. The two men rested on the ground for a while, waiting for their strength to return. Then, the wooden man led the way, and Suzumiya Musashi followed. And they began walking along the rocky wall of the cave. When there came to a fork in the path or an entrance, the wooden man would usually pause for a few seconds before choosing a direction. At first, Suzumiya Musashi thought the other group knew the route, but as they walked, he realized something was amiss. He muttered, wherever the cat points, I'll go. Suzumiya Musashi, he tried to suppress his complaints. He didn't know which direction to take, so what was the point of simply following the other group and hoping for the best? The outcome would be nada. He thought some more and continued following the wooden man, hoping that luck would help them escape this hellhole. Along the way, they could often see the surface of the water beneath the cave. Occasionally, the two waded through the water, and beneath the dark surface, they could even vaguely see the shadow of the Emperor Serpent swimming. As they walked, they saw more and more similar scenes. The light beneath the water's surface dimmed, and the surface was covered in a dark color. This black wasn't the black of dim light, it seemed as if the water itself was somewhat black. He looked around to observe. In the center of the cave, there was a body of water with a radius of 100 meters. The water was completely black. Occasionally, long and short dragons swam and thrashed in the water, breaking the surface with the swaying of their long tails, splashing the murky, dark water. Each time the Emperor Serpent's tail emerged from the water, flashes of black and white electricity could be heard. The lights they crackled and flashed. What are they doing? Suzumiya Musashi asked in a low voice. The wooden man turned his head to take a look, then turned away and continued walking. It's detoxification. Suzumiya Musashi was puzzled. Detoxification? Detoxification from what? Youmuren, thunder poison. The Emperor Serpent can control lightning. But it has lightning poison accumulated in its body. Every spring and summer is the time when the Emperor Serpent reproduces and mates. Luckily, the light in the cave was dim and she was facing Suzumiya Musashi, so she didn't have to worry about being discovered. She continued, The lightning poison in the Emperor Serpent's body will cause mating, a reproductive failure, so at this time, they come here to eliminate the lightning poison energy in their bodies and concentrate on reproduction. Suzumiya Musashi turned his head to look at the Emperor Snake, which was still raising its tail above the water's surface, and said understandingly, "I thought so. It looks like a flying toy." "That's true, lower your voice," Yukito said. "The Emperor Snake's wisdom is the same as that of the ninja beasts. If we provoke them, we'll be in trouble, huh? If we were just walking around here, they should have seen us a long time ago." "Why didn't they attack us?" the wooden man said. "Don't worry, they should be used to it." Suzumiya Musashi wanted to ask something, but Yukito wouldn't say anything more, so he had to follow him in silence. But as he walked, he stumbled upon more similar scenes. At the same time, for some reason, an inexplicable familiarity took hold of his heart. Gradually, Suzumiya Musashi seemed to discover that there were strange noises in the cave. Whether there weren't. He concentrated and unleashed his perception, and after a while, a faint roar suddenly echoed in the cave. Suzumiya Musashi unconsciously became alert. He thought Yumirin would be just as alert as he was, but he didn't expect him to freeze for a moment and then continue onward. "Didn't you hear it?" Suzumiya Musashi asked. "The wooden man," he said, "don't ask too many questions, just follow me." Chapter 255 Attack, Black Robe. As we advanced, the roars and screams echoing from the cave grew clearer. Suzumiya Musashi frowned, sensing something odd about the situation. Time ticked by, and with each step, the roar grew louder and then fainter. Suzumiya Musashi knew that he and Yukito had missed the source of the screams. An invisible barrier blocked their path. "We're here," he said. Suzumiya Musashi asked, "Shall we leave?" Yumirin replied, "Yes. But not now. We have to wait for the barrier to close." Suzumiya Musashi asked, "Why? Can't you escape?" Yumirin looked at him and said, "No. If you force your way through the barrier, you'll disrupt the Emperor Snake's breeding, and they'll go berserk." Yukito's expression was thoughtful. He always felt there were things the other party hadn't fully explained. "All right, sit here and wait. In a few days, when the Emperor Viper is finished, the barrier will automatically disappear." As he said this, he sat down on the ground. Suzumiya Musashi remained there, lost in thought. Emperor Viper, reproduction, thunder, and poison. Fragments of information flashed through his mind. Recalling the screams he had just heard, the familiar feeling grew stronger and stronger. Suddenly, he raised his head. His memories opened up, and he remembered what Lacey of the Blacklight had said before he died. An underwater base administered by the daimyo of Kumagakure in the Land of Lightning, deep in the sea, the Black Thunder Cave. The scene described then was so similar to the current situation. Thunder, caves, the realm of thunder. The expression on Suzumiya Musashi's face kept changing. Finally, she sat down next to the wooden man, crossed her knees, closed her eyes, and concentrated. Time passed minute by minute, and Suzumiya Musashi remained motionless. More than an hour later, Yukito, who was growing increasingly bored, wanted to speak to him, but Suzumiya Musashi didn't respond. Yukito was astonished and soon noticed his unusual behavior. Seeing his familiar posture, sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, she opened her eyes wide. "What are you doing?" Suzumiya Musashi didn't reply. He sensed and absorbed every trace of natural energy in the air, then absorbed it into his body. Yumirin, who had recently experienced this situation, would naturally be familiar with it. "What are you going to do?" Yumirin lowered her voice and said, "Are you going to act? Listen to me, don't go anywhere, just wait here with me until the barrier disappears, otherwise." Suzumiya Musashi, "What if I don't?" "Time." Suzumiya Musashi, "Relax, you don't have to do anything this time, I can handle this myself." Regular lines of bright yellow appeared on his skin, and an inexplicable wave suddenly spread out with Suzumiya Musashi at its center. Then, Suzumiya Musashi contained his aura and returned the way he had come without looking back. Yukito, behind him, wanted to speak to stop him, but Suzumiya Musashi ignored him and disappeared from Yukito's sight after a few breaths. Yukito stood there hesitating for a moment, and finally stomped his foot in anger. "Damn it, this is simply unreasonable." With that, he left the place. The cave passage was widening more and more. The screams that reached my ears became clearer and more shrill. Hearing this is very disturbing. Suzumiya Musashi suppressed his anger and advanced cautiously. It was a figure shrouded in black robes, a wide hood obscuring his face. Leaving only half his chin exposed, his skin was pale. With his hands tucked into his sleeves and crossed in front of his chest, he stood motionless at a fork in the path. A voice, growing louder, emanated from the passage behind him. Suzumiya Musashi glanced around and realized that if he wanted to explore the area from which the shouts originated, the location of the man in the black robes was the only way out. So he strained to silence his movements, intending to stealthily approach the man in the black robes. With his best efforts to control himself, his blood flow slowed, his heartbeat slowed, and his chakra breathing became almost inaudible thanks to the natural energy. Finally, he slowly approached to within 10 meters of the man in the black robes. Suzumiya Musashi stopped. Going any further, covering his tracks, became unrealistic. He calculated the distance between himself and the man in the black robes, and the probability of successfully sneaking in if he attacked suddenly. After a moment, the result came to him. The probability was low, but there was no other option. Whether I'm discovered or not depends on my luck. Suzumiya Musashi thought. Then, he slowly crouched down, stretched his leg muscles to their maximum, held his breath, and when he saw the opportunity, suddenly contracted his thigh muscles. His whole body was like the spirit of the toad of Mount Myaboku, moving toward the figure in the black robes with a slight rustling sound. The faint rustling sound finally caught the attention of the man in the black robes. He turned, following the movement, and saw the enlarged figure of Suzumiya Musashi Hashirama. The man in the black robe's eyes widened. The next instant, his pale face was filled with panic. He pulled his hands from his sleeves and opened his mouth to speak. Bang! The hand knife sliced across his throat with incredible speed. He spun 90 degrees and fell silently. Much weaker than expected, Suzumiya Musashi muttered under his breath. He had originally planned to knock this man unconscious. He was in control of the situation, but he hadn't expected the other party to be so vulnerable to an attack. Grasping the other person's body and slowly laying him down, Suzumiya Musashi crossed a fork in the path and slowly entered the cave. Finally, he took in the entire scene. This was a vast space several hundred meters in radius. The cave's dome was encrusted with enormous fluorite stones. Runic markings covered it completely, extending throughout the space. On the cave floor, there were also densely clustered runes and seals, which eventually intersected and merged. Where the runes intersect, there are stone pits less than 2 meters in diameter, very similar in size to the stone pits where he used to practice magic. There is almost a dark figure in each stone pit. Shouts and wails came from the mouths of these figures. And please let me out, kill me. Kill me, if you don't kill me, I'll definitely kill you. The shouts and roars were continuous. Outside the stone pit, more than a dozen people, also dressed in black robes, were walking. He turned a blind eye to the people's shouts in the stone pit. Chapter 256 The Hell of Black Light. A man in a black robe pulled back his hood, revealing his pale face, and spoke in a sinister voice. Scream, you can scream all you want, as long as it can ease your pain, you can scream however you like. If you want to live longer, please kill me. The black figure struggled violently, and the runes emitted a dim light, as if trying to penetrate his body. He writhed violently, and his body slammed against the stone wall with a thud. The man in the black robe sneered and said, Kill you, I can't anymore, I really can't. The man in the black robe scoffed, There are so many people here, why are you the only one who can't? Wait. If you can't resist, you'll naturally become nutrients for others. Shut up. As he spoke, the man in the black robe suddenly raised his right foot and, with a bang, kicked the weeping person in front of him, sending him tumbling back into the stone pit. The cracking sound left scars all over the figure's body. The people in the stone pit seemed to awaken their ferocity at his actions. A trace of bloodthirsty madness flashed in their eyes, and with a roar, they rushed toward the man in the black robe. He clasped his hands under his sleeves and formed a seal in the blink of an eye. As he moved, the runes on the stone pit suddenly glowed with a black light and tightened like a chain. The person in the stone pit let out a piercing scream. The man in the black robe did not give up. Under everyone's horrified gaze, the chain of runes slowly tightened and contracted, while the figure suspended in the air continued to writhe as the chain tightened. Screams that didn't sound like human voices echoed in the cave. The fluorite light illuminated the black faces that were fighting against fear. Finally, the runic chain suddenly dispersed, and the figure entangled within it collapsed. Pieces of flesh and blood splattered everywhere and fell into the stone pit. This bloody scene immediately drowned out the wailing in the field. The man in black said coldly, "This is the fate of those who dare to resist. If you choose to die, your outcome will be the same as his. If you resist, you might survive. If you cannot resist, a swift death is impossible." As he spoke sternly, the runes slowly glowed within the stone pit, and the black liquid continued to rise and fall. The flesh, blood, and bones eventually transformed into mysterious energy, merging with the black liquid in the stone pit and dispersing into other pits along the runes. At the same time, pure life energy emerged from nowhere. Some of it dispersed through the runes, and some flowed to an unknown location through the grooves connecting the stone pits. The man in black's voice continued, "I will not let you die in vain. Your energy will be distributed to others. Your vitality must also be returned to the Emperor Viper clan. This is your honor." The man in black looked down at the terrified people below, who dared not speak, and an expression of superior pride appeared on his pale face. He did not see that, at the cave entrance, a pair of eyes were surveying the scene, already filled with brutality and murderous intent. Suzumiya Musashi felt his temper flare again. The scene in the cave completely confirmed the information he had obtained from Blacklight Lacey. But the truth was even crueler than he had imagined. This was not a practice or a trial. It was about breeding poisonous insects and cruelly killing people. There were so many stone pits at the scene, more than 100. There was a black figure in almost every stone pit. People. Yet, without exception, in this dark cave, they were merely nutrients destined to die. Listen carefully. Stop. Such a valuable opportunity only comes once a year, and it only lasts half a month. You've wasted your master's cultivation. You're all guilty. Some of you are here for the first time, others for the second or third time. Keep going. If any of you persists 5 times, you will be favored by fate. Then you will have a place in the ninja world. The Lord will grant you the name of Blacklight, and you will be as strong as Blacklight Lord Lair. Less than 1 person, more than 10,000 people. If you want to become a leader, one of the strongest in the ninja world, this is the training you must follow. Now, you are just trash to me. One day, when one of you becomes a member of Blacklight, I will be trash to you, then I will turn around and win your favor as I won Lord Lair's favor. Then don't speak of me. Not even the various princes, nor even the shadows of the 5 great nations, can ignore you. Come, read it with me. Your Majesty, Your Majesty, Your Majesty, Your Majesty. A series of pained voices followed. Supreme, Supreme, Blacklight, 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 Supreme Glory, Supreme Glory, he thought. If you want to become a Blacklight, you can't achieve it through perseverance alone. After routinely brainwashing this group of humanoid beasts, the man in black robes turned and prepared to leave. The atmosphere was too filthy, and the faces of the people in the stone pit were too ferocious. He wanted to return to his residence, take a hot bath, and then pamper the beauty the king had bestowed upon him. As a leader, it is enough to be present at the critical moment. As for here, it is up to the cattle and horses under your command to protect them. With a black light spell in the air, a group. The beasts will cause no trouble. Just as he turned his head, a flash of lightning suddenly appeared at the time limit and rapidly expanded. A flicker of doubt unconsciously crossed the mind of the black-robed leader. Did the fluorite fall from the cave? If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 257 Kill. This was the secret base of the Thunderland Daimyo and the breeding ground of the Emperor Viper clan. The black-robed leader never imagined anyone would dare sneak in here. Therefore, upon seeing the amplified lightning in front of him, he immediately thought the fluorite installed on the ceiling had fallen. But then, he sensed something was wrong. Even if it had fallen, it would have fallen from above his head. The light in front of him was clearly at an angle. And much more. In an instant, the black-robed leader's expression changed. From confusion and bewilderment to trembling pupils and horror. This process took only an instant. What was rapidly expanding before his eyes was not fluorite, but a person enveloped in lightning. The last image in the black-robed leader's memory was eyes filled with rage. Bang! The strange power technique, blessed by magic, exploded without restraint. The last image in the black-robed leader's memory was eyes filled with rage. A fist struck the man in black. The next instant, an unprecedented force erupted, beginning in his chest, and his body was torn apart piece by piece. His torso and limbs disintegrated instantly. As spherical objects and fragments exploded and scattered, it was as if a rain of blood and flesh fell into the cave space in an instant, a brilliant red color spilling onto the floor and spraying the dome. Instantly. After a brief silence, the black-clad figures who had been walking around suddenly shouted, "Enemy attack, there are enemies, beware!" Bold, figure after figure shouted, some with anger or fear, as if they wanted to cut Suzumiya Musashi to pieces. However, what they all agreed on was that no one had the courage to step forward. Under their horrified gaze, Suzumiya Musashi moved again. Without hesitation. In Sage mode, superhuman strength and lightning techniques are activated and unleashed at full power. Unlike the measured battle with your kiddo, this time, Suzumiya Musashi gave it his all. There was no pause, no respite. The dancing fists and feet in the dark cave were like lightning and flying shadows. Bang, 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 bang. It was like a muffled thunderclap continuously exploding within the cave. Lightning flashed violently, and with each pause, a man in a black robe with a pale face was torn to pieces under the immense force. Red fireworks continued to erupt, and inside the cave, the rock walls were gradually painted with brilliant colors. Such a horrific scene shocked everyone present. Some of the men in black robes were so terrified that their limbs stiffened, and they lost control of their legs and feet. As owners of this cave, they had witnessed horrific and bloody scenes. But there had never been a situation like this. Now, they were no longer haughty and powerful rulers, but creatures more vulnerable and humble than that cattle. Lord Blacklight, help, summon the Blacklight Guardians. Under the astonished gaze of the black-clad men in the stone pit, the people dressed in black, who had previously appeared noble and majestic, screamed in terror one by one, forming hand seals. As the chakra in their bodies overflowed, black runes began to flash violently within the cave, eventually concentrating rapidly. "Begin," someone suddenly roared. In an instant, several people waved their hands. In the air, runic chains connected and shifted, resonating as they gathered around Suzumiya Musashi. However, they were not facing ordinary opponents. A bolt of lightning struck them, and they fled the place. The speed reached its extreme limit, even beyond their perception with the naked eye, and they could only see brilliant beams of light crisscrossing before their eyes. Every time you travel from one side to the other, you will end the lives of your companions. One of the men dressed in black cried out in despair, "Die!" His face, originally pale, suddenly flushed red, and his blood flowed in torrents. A trickle trickled from the corner of his mouth. It was obvious that the ninjutsu he used with all his might had caused considerable injuries. His efforts were not in vain. With all its strength, the black runic chain floating in the air suddenly became faster. As it moved and gathered, all the runes within a radius of tens of meters intersected, and the dense gaps immediately blocked all of Suzumiya Musashi's escape routes. Go to hell, Musashi would be captured with hatred under the curse of blacklight that he controlled. He decided that, once captured, he would not let him die easily. The man in black robes, with the invincible seal of blacklight in his mind, could not break this gigantic wind disk. The buzzing and vibration continued. The terrifying surge finally made the men in black robes realize that the enemy before them was a powerful foe unlike any they had ever faced before. "Go and find Lord Higuang," he roared without even turning his head. A second brilliant white disk suddenly condensed before his frightened eyes. Moreover, this time the wind disk could not be sealed by the seal he was so proud of. The lightning-like figure that terrified him flashed at the edge of the stalemate between the giant disk and the chain of black light. As the second attack in his hand condensed, he suddenly raised it and flew out of the gap in the chain before his body expanded. After breaking the block, he instantly grew larger. Damn it! The faces of the few remaining men in black robes changed drastically. The next instant, without a word, they rolled and flung themselves in all directions, in a gesture of unspoken understanding. They no longer cared about maintaining their image of nobility, and each of them was in a deplorable state. "It's over. Curse of the blacklight," he thought with concern. In an instant, the buzzing behind them suddenly changed. With a slight numbness coming from the waist or neck, the next instant, various body parts were suddenly severed. The last image the head seeing as it rolled through the air was an enormous disk of wind blades that seemed to have a life of its own, spinning wildly inside the cave. Like the most terrifying reaper, it ended the lives of all his companions in an instant. You will die too," the man in the black robe said with a resentful voice before he died. Chapter 258 Blacklight Reserve Team. Boom, the disk of wind and the chain of blacklight dissipated simultaneously. Huh? Suzumiya Musashi gasped. As far as he could see, all the enemies had fallen. He looked around and met the gazes of the people in the stone pits. There was astonishment, amazement, and disbelief. There was admiration and longing to see a strong person, but also worry. "You, who are you?" a dark figure in the stone pit asked. Before Suzumiya Musashi could answer, the figure immediately said, "You should leave quickly, otherwise, you won't be able to leave." Suzumiya Musashi didn't reply. He looked around and didn't see many people with worried eyes like the man from a moment ago. Most seemed stunned and hesitant. The purpose of doing this, is it salvation? It seems I'm not that good. He didn't have the compassion to pity each of these dark, bewildered, or grieving people. But he knew that some things shouldn't exist. It's like a dark cave before you. Just like the imposing man in a black robe who had just died. Da-da-da, a series of footsteps were heard. After a few breaths, several figures entered through the entrance. A body, dark skin, and knobby muscles enveloped a robust figure, like a beast in human form. Seeing the bloody scene in the cave, several were stunned. The burly man at the front had a ferocious look and said hatefully, "Damn it, I don't know where you got the courage. But you're dead. Going against a lord is the stupidest decision you've ever made." Suzumiya Musashi raised his hands and assumed an attack stance. He guessed that the other group might be the Blacklight Reserve mentioned by the man in the black robe. Even from their appearance, he could deduce that he and the people in the stone pit were of the same class. But he had no intention of speaking. As soon as he opened his mouth, he knew that the person in front of him had been completely assimilated. There was no emotion in Suzumiya Musashi's eyes. The objective in my mind becomes clearer. Kill. Be it the man in the black robes or the Blacklight Reserve Team. Even the name of the land of lightning behind him. As long as these things appear before you, you should treat them like plagues and kill them all. Kill him cleanly. Fight to create a bright and clear world. Bang! There was a loud crash beneath his feet, and the hard rock suddenly exploded. Suzumiya Musashi rushed toward the nearest black man. He attacked him like lightning. Seeking death, anger flashed in the black man's eyes. As a member of the Blacklight Reserve Team, the strongman who ultimately hoped to inherit the title of the Blacklight 5 Thunder Glory, no one in this cave had dared to attack him so rashly. He felt belittled. It doesn't matter what country you're from, ninja, you may be a famous and powerful ninja in the outside world, but here, you're just a weakling. I'll tell you what a truly strong person is like. I'll tell you what a truly strong person is like. With this thought in mind, the burly black man instantly bent his knees and concentrated his right fist. The moment Suzumiya Musashi approached, he shouted loudly and struck with his right fist. They didn't even have a dazzling appearance. He didn't care about that either. In his heart, only pure power is the truth. Ninjas from the outside world have many tricks, and even if they seem sophisticated, they will crumble at the first touch under his iron fist. Strength. Only a force as powerful as mine is the truth of the ninja world. With a firm conviction of his invincibility, a flash of cruelty and pleasure shone in the black man's eyes. The next instant, two fists, one large and one small, one white and one black, collided with a loud crack. Boom, an extremely powerful wave of air exploded. Gravel flew everywhere and the air vibrated. The loud noise was made in the stone pit, and everyone inside couldn't help but raise their hands to cover their eyes. Even the other 6 members, all behind the large black man, fell back. As for the black man himself, the smug smile that had just appeared at the corner of his mouth froze the moment his fists connected. What emanated from his hands was power beyond imagination. As direct and ferocious as it was. No. He seems even stronger. In an instant, the first sensation in my hands was numbness. It was like the moment a knife blade pierces the body, but it's not immediately obvious. The man's first thought in the black. The man's mind was that the other was incredibly powerful. He wasn't the kind of ninja he imagined, one who existed only in name in the outside world. As for the numbness in his hands, he assumed it was the effect of the lightning on the other. However, as a member of the Blacklight Reserve Team and a strong man who had passed 4 rounds of lightning poison purification, he didn't think the lightning-induced paralysis would cause him any trouble. Wait until you pull your hand out. The thought in his mind lasted only an instant. Then, an unbelievable scene unfolded. As their fists collided, a wave of air was transmitted. Under his gaze, his right fist began to deform and twist. and then it shattered. Starting at the fist, moving through the wrist, and then the forearm. The entire arm gradually broke apart before his horrified eyes. Impossible, he had said before. After years of rigorous training, his strength had greatly improved. Moreover, he now possessed the blessing of immortal arts and supernatural powers. An enemy who wasn't even a blacklight could pose a threat. As for the black man before him, in his eyes, he was merely a useless, dying man, and he didn't even feel like saying a word. His action. The next second, he couldn't believe it, his eyes reddened, and he kicked with all his might. He couldn't believe that Suzumiya Musashi's taijutsu was stronger than his own. Boom, the shockwave exploded again. Along with a splash of bloody mist, a severed leg with good flesh flew out with a hiss and crashed into the stone pit with a thud. After a while, it was shattered by black thunder and runes. Chapter 259, Group Attack. Tick, tick, the one-legged figure struggled to stay upright, thick blood oozing out. The black man's eyes were filled with confusion and bewilderment. Impossible, how can this be? My body, how could I lose it? How could I lose it? Intense pain emanated from the amputated limb, but the black man seemed oblivious. In the past, he had experienced pain far more excruciating and intense than this. Compared to the physical pain, what he found even harder to accept was the collapse of his cognition. He was originally believed to have no rival in the cave, save for Lord Kurako, and to be the strongest man even in the ninja world. He dared to mock the 5Kage's old age and treated the Jonin of the great country like lambs to the slaughter. He survived long, hellish trials and repeated life or death challenges. He firmly believed that as long as he survived the cave training once more and inherited the glorious title of Blacklight, he would remain at the top of the ninja world to this day. A ninja the likes of which had never been seen before. Anyway, looking at the large, armless, legless black man before him, he bent his elbows and exerted force. Using one's full strength was the only respect one could show another. A regular straight punch struck the black man's chest with a heavy blow, and his body twisted and rolled backward, slamming against a rock wall with a bang, shaking the earth and rocks. His breathing weakened rapidly, and it was clear he was dying. Suzumiya Musashi had something to say. The large black man wasn't that weak. At least, his body was very strong. Although his limbs were broken, he wasn't like the master of the cursed seal in the black robes, who had been beaten to the bone. Tough skin still covered the broken bones and flesh. This proves that the trials and training the other has undergone have been very fruitful. However, the other party was destined not to hear his acknowledgement. They are all dead. Is it necessary for them to go up? But if I don't go up, let alone if the person in front of me takes the initiative to attack, it will not be justified before Lord Higuan Lai. Thinking of such consequences, several trembled slightly and then tacitly looked at Suzumiya Musashi. Then, without saying a word, several stood up in unison. They jumped, turned, and dove. They struck ears, kicked the lower body, and pulled out pigeon eggs with claws. For a moment, the six clearly divided the work and each fulfilled their duties, simultaneously launching a large-scale attack against Suzumiya Musashi. This was the method they had prepared to face tough opponents, ninja technique, full of big men. The man in front of me is very strong. So what? Lei Guanglai arrived. As for who'd live and who'd die first, they could only leave it to fate. With this thought in mind, the four launched a coordinated attack. There were attackers in front, behind, to the left, to the right, and even above their heads. Faced with such an attack, Suzumiya Musashi's gaze quickly turned. After assessing his situation, he didn't panic, but instead raised his fists in front of him. Suddenly, he fell to the ground. Boom! The roar was deafening. The earth shook, and the dome trembled. A huge pit, nearly 10 meters in diameter, suddenly appeared in the rock beneath Suzumiya Musashi. The great pit collapsed, allowing him to avoid the attack route of the six black men. At the same time, rocks rolled and exploded in all directions with a hissing sound, with the terrifying force of a cannonball, reverberating. Not even the burly black men dared to ignore those fragments of rock. They either evaded them or counterattacked, thus resolving the crisis caused by the fragments. But after such a brief delay, Suzumiya Musashi's encirclement was broken. Suzumiya Musashi had already shot out of the stone pit and reached the center, above the crowd. Observing the six black men below, Suzumiya Musashi considered his next move. Ordinary ninjutsu had little effect against these flesh and blood monsters, as their bodies were resistant to lightning. The power of the absolute wind key elemental slash was sufficient, but due to their enormous bodies, it was unwise to use it against such powerful humanoid beasts. A powerful physical ninja whose speed far surpassed that of ordinary ninjas. Physical training remained the most suitable approach. If I used both supernatural power and magic, it shouldn't be a problem to kill one every 3 seconds. 1 for 3 seconds, 6 for 18 seconds. He still had approximately 1 minute left in his immortal state. If you calculate it that way, it was entirely feasible. Decision made. Just as he was selecting a target and preparing to attack, a burly black man, about to be hit and secretly screaming in pain, suddenly shouted, "Spread out. Hit them with rocks." The moment he finished speaking, several burly black men reacted, grabbed a large, jagged rock, and hurled it at Suzumiya Musashi. Musashi dodged a boulder and fell backward, landing on the rock wall in the blink of an eye with a loud boom. Not even Suzumiya Musashi would be willing to withstand such power. But he only had one rock, while his opponent had 6. 6 people working together to throw rocks made his job much more difficult for a while. "Sir, what are you waiting for? Come with us. Those who act will be rewarded. Those who don't, when the adults return, will be dead." Seeing that he still hesitated, he shouted again, "We all came from the same pit. Listen to me, act now, this is your last chance." After shouting, he quickly returned to the throwing team. He didn't care whether the boys in the pit would act or not. On the other hand, seeing that the sage mode time was about to expire, Suzumiya Musashi became a little nervous. He frowned slightly, dodged, and saw a stone coming straight at him. However, what enraged him was that some smaller stones weren't thrown by the 6 black men, but by a few black men in the stone pit. This time, he didn't dodge. Instead, he spun halfway around and kicked the stone hard. Bang! With a thud, the stone flew off at even greater speed. Chapter 260 Black Lightning 2. Suzumiya Musashi felt the force and numbness emanating from his feet and secretly gritted his teeth. Throwing a stone with his hands is completely different from catching it with his body. Even if his body were stronger than the 6 people in front of him, he couldn't gain the upper hand in such an attack. Bang bang! After kicking 2 more stones, Suzumiya Musashi abandoned this disadvantageous fighting style. The stone he kicked flew towards several stone pits with a hiss. The black figure in the pit tried to dodge it in a panic, but couldn't match the speed of the impact of the rocks. In the blink of an eye, he was knocked into the pit by the whistling rocks. There were bursts of muffled sounds and broken bones and tendons. Such injuries didn't allow them to hold out on the stone pit for long, and soon their bodies dissolved under the erosion of the runes and the black liquid thunder. No one cared. Several burly black men continued to hurl stones with force. Seeing the stones flying toward him one after another, giving him no time to breathe, Suzumiya Musashi continued to retreat. An instant later, he dodged a piece of debris whizzing past him, formed hand seals, and a massive amount of magical chakra erupted. Earth escape, multiple earth flow wall, bang, bang, bang. Along with the enormous consumption of magical chakra, walls of earth appeared out of nowhere in the cave, blocking Suzumiya Musashi's path and the 6 black men's launching range. Without the advantage of the terrain, it would be impossible to counter him by throwing stones. The 6 also understood that the situation was precarious. However, they didn't panic at all. The earthflow wall couldn't withstand the black man's iron fist and quickly collapsed. Suzumiya Musashi didn't care. What if it failed? The important thing was that there was now time to fight. Sensing the waning energy of the immortal technique, Suzumiya Musashi quickly focused on his target. In the blink of an eye, the black-clad man, who had been happily smashing things, suddenly saw his eyes pop out of their sockets. What met him was a rapidly growing fist in front of him. Oh, boom, take one out. Suzumiya Musashi didn't stop, and after dealing with this one, 5 more remained. He didn't choose any more and sensed the nearest one, which appeared right in front of him. To save time, Suzumiya Musashi didn't deviate. There was a solid wall of earth between him and one of the black-clad men. Suzumiya Musashi didn't care. His gaze was fixed straight ahead, as if he could see through the thick wall of earth and see the black-clad man behind it. Raise your hand and strike. The wall of earth exploded. The person behind the wall of earth also received a blow to the chest from Suzumiya Musashi's relentless punches. He broke through the 2 earthen walls behind him. Seeing the opponent's slumped chest, even if he didn't die, he definitely wouldn't be able to fight anymore. After the deaths of 2 people in quick succession, the remaining black man visibly panicked. Should we tear down the earthen wall? If we break it, the other group will easily overpower us. If we don't break it, there will be no other way to resist. The 4 remaining black men looked at each other through the gap in the earthen wall and rushed off in different directions without hesitation. We must report this to Lord Black Lightning immediately. Yes. It must be done. They wouldn't abandon the battlefield. This was an urgent matter of utmost importance, and the seriousness and urgency of the matter had to be reported to the 4 of them, Guanglei, as soon as possible. Only then could they identify the key points, find suitable strong points, and secure their position. I pray that the assassin pursuing me stays away. But they also knew that the other group wouldn't let them escape easily. But, once again, there's no way he can catch us all by himself. As for those who do catch him, they can only wish him the best. Boom, clang clang clang, boom. Inside the cave, vibrations and roars were heard. After a while, of the 4 who had fled, only the one farthest away remained. The other group ran toward the exit and suddenly stopped, looking surprised. Master Lair, he has finally arrived. At the excited words of the surviving black man, a person who looked like a tall, strong, black humanoid beast entered the cave. He walked with a firm step, one step at a time, toward Suzumiya Musashi. Behind him, the surviving black man also followed, with an expression of luck and support on his face. Chase me, keep chasing me, the black man exclaimed arrogantly. It is Master Lair who has appeared, so are you afraid? Suzumiya Musashi remained silent, and the sage mode in his body quickly faded. With a slight feeling of weakness, his body returned to normal. Ignoring the ugly appearance of the black man, he turned to face the black plus man walking in front of him and asked, "Are you Black Light Lair?" "That's right." Black Light Lair's face showed neither joy nor anger, he simply looked at Suzumiya Musashi calmly. "Being capable of killing so many people, you have the right to know my name. Have you ever thought about it? If you kill them, you'll die too." Suzumiya Musashi didn't answer the question but said, "Your name is Kurako Leiji. There should be a Black Lightning I. Right, Lei Guanglair." "Yes," Suzumiya Musashi continued, "didn't they say that one of you was with a daimyo and the other at the gold market? Why are you here?" Hearing this, Guanglair's expression finally changed. "How did you know? Where did you get the information?" Suzumiya Musashi said, "Answer my question first, and then I'll answer yours." Lair of Blacklight looked at Suzumiya Musashi and thought for a moment, as if considering trying to extract information directly from him. After a moment, he said, "Lei-san is with a lord, and I'm at the gold exchange. When necessary, I'll come here to take care of things." Suzumiya Musashi: "Oh, then why do you have to run around when Lei-san is with a daimyo? Is it because you're not as strong as Lei-san?" Lair of Black Lightning said, "Actually, no. This isn't the first question. You still haven't answered me. Where did you get the information?" Suzumiya Musashi repeated, "And I'll tell you the answer." Lair of Blacklight didn't even think about it this time and said, "If you don't tell me, forget it. Only I can find the answer myself." Guanglair's face darkened. It wasn't just because he felt Suzumiya Musashi was playing a trick on him. In fact, his strength surpassed that of Black Lightning III. As for why the other party followed the daimyo while he was wandering freely in the streets, the reasons were somewhat complicated. A few years ago, that awful publishing house not only released a lot of eco-friendly and wholesome literature, such as the story The Guardian of Dark Light from the Land of Clouds and Rain has to tell, the secret records of the daimyo's lady's bedroom, and the daimyo knows nothing, but from then on, he felt the daimyo's attitude toward him was gradually changing. Chapter 261, The Thoughts of the Wooden Man. From I have Lair, I can rest easy at the beginning to go out more often when you have time and there are complicated tasks. Lei-san isn't enough, you have to go. It only took a few days. From then on, the honest and ugly Kurako Reizo replaced him as the daimyo's bodyguard. Previous question, I received news of Blacklight Lei-si. 3 years ago, in the Land of Waves, Guanglair's pupils suddenly shrank, and he looked up sharply. It's you? Black Light Thunder 4 was the second after him to pass the 5 trials in the cave. As a member of the Blacklight Guard, the latter's strength wasn't much different from his own. 3 years ago, when he learned of Guanglai's death, he was deeply shocked and even thought that a cage-level expert from some country had acted and killed the other. The daimyo was vague about it, and because of his status, it wasn't convenient for him to ask any more questions. But I didn't expect that the one who killed Blacklight Lei-si was the one standing before me. I didn't understand why the other group would attack Black Lightning 4. Logically speaking, besides his own tyrannical power, Black Lightning 4 was also a member of the Daimyo's Guard in the Land of Lightning. The ninja villages had a tacit agreement and wouldn't easily attack the Daimyo's forces. Why? Who ordered you to do this? He asked, his expression more serious. No one ordered him to do that, Suzumiya Musashi said. He's just like all of you. In my opinion, you all deserve to die, or you can also think of it as killing people for money. Guanglayer narrowed his eyes and clenched his massive fists. He said, it doesn't matter if you don't want to tell the truth. Anyway, you'll die here today, okay? Suzumiya Musashi said, as long as you can do it. Sage mode had faded. But Suzumiya Musashi showed no fear. 3 years. During these 3 years, his strength improved day by day. Now, even facing Black Light Thunder 2, whose strength was nearly equal to that of Black Light Thunder 4, he felt no inferiority. The remaining chakra in his body began to increase. As his aura grew stronger, Suzumiya Musashi assumed a serious attack stance. Konoha Taijutsu Ninja, Suzumiya Musashi. The two men glared at each other, their fighting spirit as strong as if it were real, and a muffled pressure spread throughout the space. The next instant, they both moved in unison. The rocks beneath the two men exploded simultaneously. As debris flew, their figures vanished from one place and reappeared in another. A clash of fists. The overwhelming force lasted for an instant, and then a deafening roar erupted from the cave. Boom, dot. While they fought, no one noticed that, at the cave entrance, a pair of beautiful eyes were discreetly watching, observing the entire situation. Yu Murin had been there for some time. Shortly after Suzumiya Musashi left, she had secretly followed him, worried. Although Suzumiya Musashi insisted on coming despite her advice, she couldn't stand idly by. This was her man. No matter what happened, he couldn't die here. Upon arriving, she saw the scene inside the cave. The massacre by the man in black and the appearance of everyone in the stone pit shocked her deeply. From a few words spoken by Hokage, she knew that this was the place where the daimyo of the Land of Lightning trained his assassins. She also knew of the existence of the Blacklight Guard. Through an agreement with the Emperor Viper Clan, those kidnapped by the Lightning Land daimyo would be subjected to brutal trials and brainwashing, and ultimately, the qualified candidates would be eliminated. But it wasn't until today that she first saw what the cave trial was like. The dark and violent curse master, the overwhelming blacklight curse, and the wretched-looking people in the cursed stone pit. Such a scene enraged her, and she even felt the urge to go out and destroy this bloody and cruel place with Suzumiya Musashi. But she restrained herself. Not only out of cowardice, but because, after all, she was a ninja from the Hidden Cloud Village. Hokage had also agreed to the agreement between the Lightning Land and the Tikaya clan. She wasn't alone, and she couldn't circumvent the Hokage and act against the daimyo's forces in private. Speaking of which, the Hokage's status isn't as prestigious as the daimyo's. While she hesitated, Suzumiya Musashi acted swiftly. His movements were brutal and rapid, and in the blink of an eye, the cave was filled with the dead and wounded. Unlike the restraint he had shown when fighting her, Suzumiya Musashi was violent and ruthless during the slaughter. He cut down human lives quickly, as if they were weeds. It didn't matter what methods the Curse Master or the top-tier Blacklight Reserve used, everyone was killed as swiftly as if they were chopping melons and vegetables. This bloody scene didn't disgust her. On the contrary, she felt something strange in her heart. Something beautiful, even. This man wasn't cruel to her. Compared to his treatment of the Curse Master and the Blacklight Reserve, his previous actions even seemed somewhat kind. With this in mind, she continued to observe. When Suzumiya Musashi was attacked by the Blacklight Reserve team, she nervously clenched her fists. Fortunately, the opponent was strong, and they soon found a way to deal with him. After a while, the Blacklight Reserve was eliminated and defeated. That's good fight, just as expected from the man I gave 10 years of my life to, but shortly after, Lay Blacklight I appeared. She suddenly became nervous. Unlike the others, she had heard of Reiji Blacklight's strength. According to the Hokage, he was a strong man who specialized in physical abilities and pushed them to their limits. Even the Hokage placed great importance on the strength of the Blacklight Guard. She couldn't predict what the outcome would be when Suzumiya Musashi faced the opponent. In particular, the bright yellow lines on Suzumiya Musashi's body had faded, meaning the opponent's immortal technique could no longer be used. Could we still win in this case? Under her worried gaze, The two remained together. Boom! The fight between them created an amazing atmosphere. The airwaves expanded and the rock walls shattered. Some in the stone pit struggled fiercely, trying to break free from the blacklight curse and escape. Others lowered their heads, ignoring the intense pain inflicted by the black liquid, and shrank back into the pit to avoid the terrible consequences of the battle. However, all of this was in vain. Chapter 262, Fight to the bitter end of your mind. The sound of their struggle could almost be described as terrifying. Every fight, every dodge, caused enormous damage to the cave. Once the people in the stone pit were hit, either their bones and tendons would shatter, or their flesh and blood would be sprayed everywhere. Under the erosion of the black liquid of thunder, the only result would be death. At that moment, they had no choice but to take their chances. They could only secretly pray that they wouldn't be one of the unfortunate victims of the aftermath. Boom 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 boom, a flash of lightning illuminated the area, and an enormous force surged out. Yumu Ren was surprised to find that, in the battle between the two, Suzumiya Musashi had the upper hand despite not having the advantage in size. Suzumiya Musashi was somewhat excited. It seemed that this kind of battle made him happy. He was right. Suzumiya Musashi was indeed very excited. He liked this violent and direct way of fighting. He enjoyed the physical combat and the thrilling sensation of blood flowing. This feeling is extremely rare. Not since the fight with Blacklight Lacy 3 years ago had I had such a satisfying battle against a physical opponent, where I used all my strength and every means to kill him. Tsunade is Hokage and also a woman. Regardless of their identity or relationship, she's not a good training partner. Might Guy is her good brother. Even if they could train, he simply couldn't have the intention to kill the other. Later, whether it was the giant beasts on the island or the wooden men, the situation was similar. He had no intention to kill. Without the intention to kill, the fight cannot be considered pure. Today is different. Blacklight Layer is an opponent he can face without hesitation. After facing the man in the black robes and Blacklight's reserve team, his killing instinct has been fully unleashed. Fight. Attack. Kill. This is the most glorious and pleasurable moment for a taijutsu ninja. Even better than with my sister, it's a more intense and direct pleasure than gambling and drugs. Kill, kill, kill. Fight, fight, fight. No magic, no psychic abilities, no helpers. There's only one opponent and you. There's only power in your body, which belongs entirely to you. Boom, waves of air exploded like a bomb in the cave. Suzumiya Musashi knocked Black Lightning out with a single punch and let out a long roar into the sky. Great, come back, it's not enough, stronger, use your name, Black Lightning, to fight me. Haegwang Layer said nothing. Boom boom boom, he was doing his best to contain Suzumiya Musashi's attack, which was like a storm. The blow to his body caused him intense pain, making his eyes twitch. It's not enough. It's not enough, try harder, there are only two outcomes today. Either I beat you to death, or, you beat me to death. Haegwang Layer's eyes widened. Panicked as he dodged, he stared at Suzumiya Musashi, his eyes wide with surprise. Are you sick? He didn't understand Suzumiya Musashi's condition. For him, the body was a weapon to kill the enemy. The daimyo's praise was the reward for fighting. The strength he possessed today wasn't the result of rigorous training, but of enduring endless pain and fighting for survival. He took advantage of the vast difference in strength. The cries of enemies and the loss of lives made him feel the value of being alive and the glory of being strong. And a battle of equal strength? Sorry. He didn't like that. In fact, after realizing that Suzumiya Musashi's strength was even greater than his own, besides the shock and fear, he was already seriously considering whether to activate reinforcements and ask for help. Bang! After using all his strength to strike, a piercing pain emanated from his fist. Haegwang Layer even felt as if his arm were about to snap. And Suzumiya Musashi, who was knocked down by his full force attack, immediately clung to him like candy. There was an expression of what he believed to be morbid glee in his eyes. Haegwang Layer's cheeks couldn't help but twitch. His distorted expression was almost like writing grandiloquent words on his face. Don't come any closer, boom 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 boom. Enemy, defeated. Fight to the death. Fight regardless of physical exhaustion or pain. During the fierce fight, he also suffered some injuries, and his muscles and bones were under great strain. But he didn't care. He wouldn't stop until his foundation was damaged. Fight until your enemies are dead, boom. Another explosive collision. This time, Layer didn't want to persist. He admitted from the bottom of his heart that the man in front of him wasn't right. This monster in front of him was even physically stronger than him. Damn it. I won't fight anymore. All the arrogance and boasting from before the game vanished from his mind in that instant. With the powerful recoil force of the last blow, he found the right direction and fled at full speed toward the side entrance of the cave. With his back to Suzumiya Musashi, he bit his right hand. Blood spread instantly, and bright red blood flowed across his palm, covering a complex and strange pattern. A strange wave suddenly spread in the distance. Behind him, Suzumiya Musashi also noticed that something was wrong. Looking at Layer, who was running toward the exit with his back to him, great dissatisfaction appeared in his eyes. I haven't had enough fun yet, and you're just leaving like this. The next instant, he planted both feet firmly on the ground, and suddenly, his speed exploded. His entire body seemed to transform into a bolt of lightning, and he instantly charged toward Black Light Layer. Don't go, keep fighting. However, as he shouted, Layer's body trembled, and the next instant, he was running even faster. Suzumiya Musashi gave chase with all his might. However, although he was faster, his familiarity with the cave's layout was far inferior to Black Light Layer's. Given the complex terrain, the latter relied on the twists and turns of the route, which prevented him from catching up for a while. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. With his terrifying speed, they had already covered a huge distance in a short time. Finally, at one point, Black Light Layer stopped. He turned and looked at Suzumiya Musashi, who was approaching at full speed. A grimace of contempt spread across his face and he spoke in a cold voice, "This time, you're going to die." Chapter 263, Thunder Lightning's Assistant 2. Layer's eyes blazed with pride at his victory. Suzumiya Musashi, who was approaching, was confused, but that didn't slow his attack. He had very little chakra left and needed to end the battle as quickly as possible. He lunged forward at breakneck speed, his right fist ready to unleash his supernatural power, ready to deliver a powerful blow to Black Lightning II. At that moment, a black lightning bolt suddenly appeared in front of him. It collided with Suzumiya Musashi's right fist. Bang! The black lightning suddenly filled my eyes, and a sharp pain and numbness erupted from my fist. This sensation was like when, as a child, I touched a dripping light switch and half my body went numb. Despite the intense numbness, Suzumiya Musashi didn't stop his attack. Layer, with a smug expression on his face, exclaimed, "Bang!" The latter's expression froze instantly, and then, an enormous force sent him flying backward. He hung in midair, spitting out large mouthfuls of blood. "Bang!" he exclaimed. Whoa! Layer Black Light crashed into the stone wall, his body convulsing violently as he vomited another large mouthful of blood. He half knelt, raised his head, and glared at Suzumiya Musashi with a fierce, defiant look. He asked, "Did you enjoy the fight, but this is the last time? I hope you can remain as majestic as this even after death." Suzumiya Musashi didn't reply. Instead, he stared intently ahead, his eyes filled with solemnity. One after another, Emperor Vipers swam in zigzags and gathered before him. Their black bodies, several meters long, were covered in dark gray patterns. Their catfish mouths opened, their serpentine tongues darting in and out, their dark eyes gleaming with dangerous, murderous intent. Emperor Viper. The Emperor Viper clan had made a pact with the Thunder Kingdom. The group of imperial snakes before him ranged in size from 3 meters short to 5 or 6 meters long. Endless streams of Emperor Vipers swam, leaped from the black water, and swam along the rock face. So, how about that? Lightning poison tastes bad, doesn't it, Laergy? Black Lightning grinned and said, "Even I can't ignore Emperor Viper lightning poison, let alone you, who've never experienced it. Half your body must be numb now, right?" Suzumiya Musashi frowned. Layer was right. The lightning that had suddenly appeared was more powerful than he had imagined. Besides the direct impact of its fist, his body was also struck by scattered lightning bolts. At that moment, not only was his right arm numb, but he even felt a tingling sensation on the right side of his body. Did you know he was wearing the lightning armor? The Emperor Viper's lightning bolts could penetrate it and cause him harm. This made him realize that this group of reptiles was very troublesome. Although not as large as the Colossus, it was more difficult to fight than him in terms of methods. Boom! A black lightning bolt suddenly appeared before his eyes. Suzumiya Musashi was startled and instantly stepped back. In a flash, He avoided most of the thunder, but a bolt of lightning struck him. The numbness intensified. Bolts of electrical power penetrated deep into his body, constantly eroding his remaining chakra. At the same time, the Emperor Viper in front of him swam and quickly surrounded him. Damn it! With a curse, Suzumiya Musashi didn't dare hesitate. He quickly reached his maximum speed and continued dodging. At the same time, his hands didn't stop. He swiftly formed hand seals with his left hand, which wasn't paralyzed. With such speed, even Hokage Kakashi and Uchiha Itachi would be defeated. In just a few breaths, he unleashed various types of ninjutsu one by one: fire, hurricane, water flow, earth, and stone. All of these ninjutsu impacted the Emperor snakes in front of him. As a result, their chakra was immediately depleted. Boom boom boom, chakras of various attributes exploded across the field, accompanied by attacks of fire, earth, and rock, and the Emperor snakes emitted furious roars. Such attacks only enraged them but didn't cause them any real damage. And Suzumiya Musashi's purpose wasn't to harm them. His purpose was to test Emperor Kui's resistance to various types of ninjutsu. As he moved swiftly, he observed what was in front of him. Soon he obtained the desired result. The lightning chakra in his body was essentially ineffective against the opponent's Black Thunder attack, and the opponent's water chakra was like water being poured out on its own. Obviously, these two types of ninjutsu had no effect on the Tikaya clan. The three remaining attributes, wind escape and fire escape, did cause some damage to Emperor Kui. Although the effect was slight, it worked. As for earth escape, it was better than nothing. Although these beasts weren't large, their physical strength was very high. With a drill bit in their heads, holes appeared in the earth wall, and even their speed didn't decrease much. After continuously analyzing this information, Suzumiya Musashi soon made a decision. At that moment, the paralysis in his body hadn't yet been eliminated, and the residual power of the thunder continued to erode him. He controlled the remaining chakra and performed the sealing technique. Rune seals appeared on the right side of his body. In his eyes. The sealing technique worked. Under the effect of the sealing technique, the power of thunder was gradually blocked. To prevent this force from causing trouble again, Suzumiya Musashi gritted his teeth and used sealing techniques to extract it from his body along with the damaged tissue. Bang! The air filled with a mist of blood, mixed with a hint of burnt black. As the blood mist erupted from the right side of his body, Suzumiya Musashi's expression relaxed considerably. Without the ravages of thunder and lightning, he felt that control over his body had become familiar once more. At that moment, his body's chakra was completely depleted. He glanced at the pursuing serpent emperor and spoke softly, "Yin seal, resolution." Between his brows, a faint diamond-shaped mark suddenly darkened and then turned black. Then, lines extended from his brows and adhered to his skin. At the same time, chakra surged through his body like a tide. Simultaneously, the wounds caused by the erosion of thunder's power also healed rapidly. A sense of boundless power surged through his body once more, and Suzumiya Musashi's fighting spirit was rekindled. He glared at the Emperor Viper clan that was relentlessly and noisily pursuing him. "Now it's my turn. Fire style, explosive flame. Wind style, wild tornado." If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 264, Yin Seal, Liberation. Boom, blazing flames suddenly filled the cave. The fire's brilliant light illuminated the dark cave world, and the air distorted with the intense heat. Then, a ferocious hurricane followed like a shadow, wind and fire combining to sweep in all directions with a loud crash. Ang! Waves of pain screams erupted from the flames. Weak rumbles of thunder and the roar of something pounding against the stone walls could be heard. Suzumiya Musashi's hands were constantly busy. The combined ninjutsu exerted its lethal power, and under the influence of the wind, the fire engulfed all the Emperor's serpent positions. As the chakra continued to flow, the temperature inside the cave rose rapidly, and even the rocky walls of the dome burned and crackled. After a few breaths, the effect of the ninjutsu finally subsided. The flames died down. Inside the cave, the light dimmed again. In the gloom, Suzumiya Musashi could still clearly see the Emperor Viper's situation. Of the more than 30 Emperor serpents, fewer than 10 remained. The rest were scattered limply throughout the cave. The glossy black skin of their bodies was gone, replaced by scarred flesh. Some were superficially shrunken, while others were roasted to a crisp. As they writhed, their skin cracked, revealing the glistening red flesh within. The air was thick with a rich aroma of barbecue. At that moment, accompanied by the sound of water splashing in various parts of the cave and the sloshing of a black liquid, several more emperor serpents emerged from the water. Their glowing black eyes stared at Suzumiya Musashi with intense murderous intent. Aang, a giant viper nearly 10 meters long, roared. As if on cue, the remaining emperor vipers stretched their necks, and then, a black beam erupted from their bodies and hurtled towards Suzumiya Musashi. Earth escape, multiple earth flow walls. Still in the water, he quickly prepared to dive, and those not already submerged swiftly jumped in, unconcerned about the burns on their bodies. Suzumiya Musashi was astonished. It was obvious that these imperial serpents had already prepared for his wind and fire ninjutsu. Although fire style could damage the emperor serpent, its own characteristics made it difficult for it to attack targets underwater. It achieved twice the result with half the effort. So Suzumiya Musashi stopped forming hand seals, extended his right hand, and swiftly condensed wind chakra. It completely destroyed the Kiyuan. The extremely narrow attack surface allowed this ninjutsu to retain most of its damage even underwater. The blazing white wind disk condensed rapidly, and under the emperor serpent's gaze, Suzumiya Musashi waved her right hand. The disk suddenly expanded and shot out toward where they were most concentrated. Whoosh! The disk sliced through the air and reached the emperor serpents in the blink of an eye. The targeted emperor serpents submerged without hesitation. The next instant, a massive wind disk pierced the water. Whoosh! Water splashed lightly to the sides. When the other emperor serpents saw that the attack wasn't aimed at them, they seized the opportunity and unleashed lightning. Suzumiya Musashi dodged and, at the same time, continued using the absolute wind slash Kiyuan. 3 consecutive slashes, horizontal or vertical, crushed the emperor serpents with a loud crash. The emperor serpents lowered their heads one by one and disappeared underwater, and space suddenly calmed for a brief moment. The calm lasted only a few seconds. Then, the waves began to churn. Suzumiya Musashi watched the water's surface, wondering if the Zetsufuki elemental slash was cutting through the underwater rocks or if it had actually hit its target. After a while, the water's surface began to churn. Although no traces of blood were visible on the black surface of the water, a strong smell of blood began to permeate the air. Suzumiya Musashi knew that the Zetsufen Kiyuan was effective. He couldn't resist it. In this way, he knew how to deal with this group of emperor snakes. He simply stayed on the shore. As soon as an emperor snake appeared, he would attack it with his Kiyuan. With the help of the Yin seal, he believed that dealing with a group of emperor snakes in front of him would be no problem. In this way, 2 more Kiyuan were launched one after the other. The extreme cutting force and enormous area of attack caused the 2 emperor vipers that appeared one after the other to lose their heads one after the other. Blood gushed out, and the mangled bodies lay slowly silent on the water's surface. Just as the 3rd emperor viper appeared, he was well prepared and unleashed another Kiyuan. However, the anticipated complete rupture did not occur. The emperor vipers seemed to have received some kind of signal. The moment Zhu Feng released the Kiyuan from his hand, the emperor vipers emerged from the water one after another, screaming in unison. Lines of black lightning extended, gathered in the air, and collided with Zhu Feng's Kiyuan. Boom 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 boom, blades of wind exploded, thunder resounded, loud noises were heard, and the cave trembled. With a terrifying sound, before Suzumiya Musashi's astonished eyes, Zhu Feng Kiyuan's hand was shattered under Dika's collective attack. The word shattered might not be quite right. To be precise, the Emperor Serpent's method was more of a combined attack technique, capable of combining all the Black Thunders into a single strike. His Jufang Kiyuan's hand was consumed by a massive amount of thunder power under such a combined attack. Suzumiya Musashi's eyes widened in shock. Soon, something even more astonishing happened. A giant, 10-meter-long viper glared at him, its mouth opening and closing. Foolish human, use whatever tricks you have this time. Death, Suzumiya Musashi, do you really know how to speak? Nonsense, Emperor Hu said angrily. Our Emperor Hu clan has a long tradition, so ancient that it's older than the history of your ninjas. We simply rarely use human language, but you are different. You are a powerful human who has killed many of our own. I swear by the glory of the Emperor Snake that you will die today. As he spoke, The Emperor Snake's body suddenly thrashed in the water. The next instant, black water filled the sky and thunder roared. Chapter 265 The so-called noble. Black water, with the power of thunder, streaked across the sky. Just as Suzumiya Musashi wondered about the other's actions, the black water didn't fall as expected, but floated gently in the air under a strange force, without falling. Then, the rest of the Emperor's serpents began to do the same. Their long tails extended, and turbid waves rose into the sky. And more, flowing in crisscrossing patterns, almost blocking Suzumiya Musashi's view. Suzumiya Musashi was secretly on guard. Emperor Kui wouldn't do anything without reason. What was the purpose of making such a fuss? Whatever the motive, we can't let the other continue. Suzumiya Musashi made a decision. His wind attribute chakra condensed again, and the absolute wind key elemental slash generated in his hand. He attacked the Emperor Viper in front of him once more. Ang, and. The Emperor's serpents roared in unison, and black lightning erupted from their bodies in the blink of an eye. Moreover, with the black water covering the sky, the speed of the thunder attack was faster than ever. He frowned, thinking something was wrong. The Emperor Viper's combined attack technique became even more powerful under the influence of the black water, and his Jufang Qianzan could no longer inflict effective damage. The water and lightning escape was ineffective, the earth escape was too ineffective, and the opponent had now found a way to deal with the wind escape. And the fire style. Suzumiya Musashi was speechless for a moment as he stared at the black water that almost blocked his vision. He finally understood what the Emperor's serpents were planning. Using the floating black water could not only increase the effect of their thunder attack but also prevent the fire escape. In this way, the 5-attribute ninjutsu was practically ineffective. Boom! The black thunderbolt shot toward him at terrifying speed. Suzumiya Musashi didn't dare take it headlong and hastily dodged it. Immediately afterward, another thunderclap ripped through the air. Boom, boom, boom. The Emperor Snake seemed to have started a relay race, launching attacks one after another, leaving Suzumiya Musashi exhausted from so much defending. I must say, group fights have the advantage. He continued dodging the Emperor Viper attacks, and as more arrived, his situation became increasingly difficult. Suzumiya Musashi thought to himself as he dodged the thunderbolt. This can't go on. The Emperor Viper has a strong body and is also infected with a strange lightning poison. 3 or 5 are easy to eliminate, but when dozens gather, combined with the opponent's strange combo attack technique, it's much more difficult. The next instant, he observed the Emperor Snake's figure gleaming behind the black water, and a determined look flashed in his eyes. Try this first, ninja technique, King Kong block, clash. A chain of golden lightning bolts suddenly erupted from his chest, lengthened with the wind, and transformed into a thick chain in the blink of an eye on the opposite side. Obviously, the other hadn't expected to become Suzumiya Musashi's test subject. He seemed a little flustered by the rush. On his black, catfish-like face, a pair of glowing black eyes flashed with almost human surprise. Just as he reacted to controlling the thunder, the thick golden chain suddenly tightened around him. Clash, accompanied by a metallic clang, the Emperor Snake was firmly controlled by the golden chains. Oh! This isn't good, Aang, save me, Emperor Kui screamed in a panic. Then, a tongue of fire shot up the chain, and searing flames engulfed him in the blink of an eye. Bound by the golden chains, he had no escape and could only watch as the flames in his eyes grew larger and larger. Fire style, Python concealment technique, the Emperor Viper let out a blood-curdling scream. At the same time, the Emperor Vipers surrounding him rushed into action. Lightning bolts struck Suzumiya Musashi, and torrents of black water rushed toward the flames and the chains. Suzumiya Musashi kept dodging them. The golden chain extending from his body was like a kite string in his hand. No matter how his body shifted, he always held the other end tightly. The tongues of fire followed the chains, avoiding the erosion of the black water, and continuously heated the Emperor Viper. Suppressed. The charred body of the latter fell into the water with a plop. Such a scene astonished many emperors. Then, an even greater anger was reflected in their eyes. How many years? For many years, no human had dared to provoke the Emperor Viper clan in this way. Swoosh, a great imperial serpent, over 10 meters long, newly arrived, shot out and lunged at Suzumiya Musashi with ferocious force. Humanity, I want you dead, how brazen, exclaimed Suzumiya Musashi, and his figure flashed brightly, and the diamond block attacked again. With the blessing of the Yin seal, his chakra was even more abundant than usual, and the power of the Vajra seal was even greater. 2 chains whizzed by, one above and one below, attacking Emperor Viper from above and below. At the same time, fire attribute chakra had concentrated in his hands, ready to attack in the style Indian. Swoosh swoosh swoosh, the Emperor Viper is also incredibly fast. Its 10-meter-long body kept leaping, avoiding the pursuit of the golden chains. While looking for an opportunity to attack, it said furiously, "I want to see how long you can last alone. If you dare to kill my Emperor Hu clan, you will pay the price in blood." Suzumiya Musashi snorted coldly, "It's obvious you're conspiring with the daimyo of the Land of Lightning. You were the one who started it, so what?" Emperor Kui said proudly, "We are the Emperor Kui clan, superior to ninja beasts. Your daimyo is also the noblest person among humans, so what if a few ants die? You may be quite powerful among humans, but you shouldn't. You shouldn't attack my Diga clan. You should have the nerve to kill my people." What a joke. He dodged a lightning attack and said coldly, "Your Excellency, filthy noble, in my opinion, whether it's Emperor Kui or the daimyo of the Land of Thunder, they're all useless. If they only defend a corner, that's fine, but since they seek to cause trouble, they should be prepared to die. Today I'll kill Emperor Hu first, and tomorrow I'll go and overthrow the damn daimyo of the Land of Thunder." An incomprehensible look of astonishment was drawn in Emperor Kui's eyes. As an ancient race with a long heritage, class and status have been passed down through the Diga clan. The powerful Emperor Viper clan is the most expensive. In the ninja world, daimyos who secretly wield power and have done so since ancient times are also nobles. A noble person should have the power to kill or take the lives of the humble and weak, and to do whatever one pleases. What is wrong with that? Chapter 266, Under my fists, all beings are equal. That's right. Hasn't the ninja world been like this for thousands of years? Perhaps occasionally, some oppressed mediocrities would rise up in resistance, but they wouldn't cause much of a stir. The human before him was clearly a very powerful ninja. Obviously, the other party could join the ranks of the nobles and share the sacrifices of humble lives, so why was he so disrespectful to his own Tiku clan and the name of the ninja world? No. This attitude can no longer be described as disdain, it's simply hatred. Seeing Suzumiya Musashi's cold and determined gaze, he had no doubt that if the daimyo of the Land of Lightning actually appeared before him, he would kick him without hesitation and send him before the Sage of Six Paths. "You're simply a traitor." Tiku finally found the human word to describe people like Suzumiya Musashi. And when he heard his curse, Suzumiya Musashi didn't care at all. "You're a beast, how dare you speak to me?" As he spoke, he focused his mind and activated his chakra. As Emperor Kui raged at his words, the speed of the golden chain suddenly increased. Bang! The chains tightly bound the Emperor Viper's massive body, emitting a loud, muffled sound. His rapidly moving body suddenly stiffened. Just as his chakra gathered momentum and he was about to form a seal, something strange happened. Hum, 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 space vibrated. The entire cave was like a huge being. The inner space vibrated and hummed. The rock walls, the black water, the air, everything trembled. Amidst the roar, powerful waves of energy spread out. Earth and rocks were crushed. The flame was extinguished. What made Suzumiya Musashi even more incredible was that the diamond seal he cast actually began to vibrate with such force. And as the vibration continued, the chain's vibration grew increasingly violent. Suzumiya Musashi endured a discomfort in his body and quickly looked around, trying to pinpoint the source of the vibration. Soon, he discovered it. The vibration wasn't coming from outside the cave, but from within. The black water covering the sky was connected and floating. Under the control of the Emperor Serpent's group, the thunderous power within continued to radiate, causing strong vibrations. At that moment, the Emperor Serpent, who was bound with the Vajra seal, also moved. It opened its mouth, and a black beam erupted along with the liquid, connecting with the black water in the space. The next second, tremors emanated from it, and the vibrations within the cave intensified. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Finally, under the intense vibration, Suzumiya Musashi's diamond seal could no longer hold, and as the chakra inlet was severed, it shattered. It ignored the broken Vajra block and the escaping Emperor Serpent. Suzumiya Musashi covered his ears and observed the vibrations in space, wondering when they would cease. However, as time passed, the vibrations grew stronger and stronger. In contrast to his unbearable state, the Emperor Serpent state seemed to have become more energetic, Mirror space. For several years, Bai had been by his side, assisting him with his research on the limits of the bloodline. Suzumiya Musashi was well aware of the effects of Bai's blood-tainted ninjutsu. The serpents used the method that scattered black water throughout space and created vibrations, similar to Bai's ice mirror field. It wasn't as simple as controlling the vibrations of black water thunder. Within the cave's current space, the power of black water and thunder would be a unique blessing for the Emperor Viper clan, inflicting greater damage on enemies within. One manifestation of this was the suppression of their diamond seal through vibration. Upon realizing this, Suzumiya Musashi grew even more serious. It seemed the other party wasn't lying. The Diga clan possessed a long tradition and its own unique methods. 5-attribute ninjutsu is restricted, and the diamond seal was also suppressed by the tribe's territory. The only remaining means appeared to be the 8 gates. Now that his body had grown, Suzumiya Musashi no longer had as many concerns as before about executing 8 gates ninjutsu. What made him hesitate was the Emperor Viper's thunder poison. To use the 8 gates, close combat was indispensable. When the time came for close combat, would he be able to withstand the effects of the lightning poison? Inside the cave, the suppression of the thunder and black water domain grew stronger and stronger. A flash of determination shone in Suzumiya Musashi's eyes. I can't control it anymore. The longer I wait, the worse the situation will become. Just as she made the decision, the Emperor Serpent, which had just escaped the Vajra block's control due to the impact, turned around. This time, it was followed by 2 Emperor Serpents larger than itself. Each was 12 or 13 meters long. It roared and flew through the black water in the air, rapidly approaching Suzumiya Musashi. Ho guys, your chains are useless now, right? You can't use your ninjutsu anymore, can you? Now it's my turn. I want you to know that the Diga clan is an ancient, noble, and powerful race. Humans like you, 8 gates of ninjutsu, open the gate, open, 2nd gate, open, 3rd, 6th landscape gate, open. The shackles binding his body were opened one by Suzumiya Musashi. A rising chakra surged. Suzumiya Musashi clenched his fists, his muscles expanding, and a powerful aura emanating from every part of his body. His short hair billowed. The orange martial arts uniform he wore rustled with a hiss of chakra. Powerful waves of air, centered around him, instantly spread in all directions. Thunderous black water swept through the air and surrounded Suzumiya Musashi. This astonishing sound caused all the Emperor snakes to fall silent and their eyes to widen. What kind of jutsu is this? An ninjutsu? I have a bad feeling about this. A few whispered conversations were barely audible over the terrifying waves of air. Still in the midst of his attack, he unconsciously slowed down. The voice, cold as ice, made him tremble. So-called nobility is nothing more than living a few more years. I'll tell you today, under the 2 fists, all beings are equal. Chapter 267. He is just one person, he can't kill us all. Dekui, his foreskin numbed by Suzumiya Musashi's gaze, opened his mouth, wanting to say something. Suzumiya Musashi had already moved. A green light suddenly appeared before all the Emperor snakes. It was extremely fast and cold. Kui. Emperor, whose eyes were as large as copper bells. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to speak, but Suzumiya Musashi didn't give him the chance. The last thing I saw was a fist growing larger and larger before my eyes. Boom, the roar was thunderous. Flesh and blood exploded, and a mist of blood spread. The Emperor snake who had been there a moment ago only had the lingering scent of blood. From the perspective of all the Emperor snakes, they only saw green chakra energy emanating from Suzumiya Musashi's body, which then transformed into green light. The green light shone upon the Emperor snake's body. At the same time, the Emperor snake, always known for its powerful body, exploded in the cave. How scary. The cave continued to move. Each time it refracted, one of its kind was irradiated and torn to pieces. Among them were many Emperor snakes far more powerful than it, but now, under the irradiation of that terrifying green light, they were all reduced to bits of flesh and bloody mud. Don't run, an Emperor snake shouted, it's just one person, this ninjutsu won't last long, even if it exhausts all its chakra. It won't be able to kill everyone of our kind. Such a reminder caused many Emperor snakes to regain consciousness. Observing the green light that continuously flashed in the cave, they understood that the fight had begun. Even if they escaped at that moment, the human ninjas wouldn't let them get away easily. Led by an Emperor Viper nearly 15 meters long, most of the remaining Emperor Vipers reorganized into battle formation. As they roared in unison, waves of thunderous power continued to surge from their bodies, causing the black water in space to expand and rage. The black water, fueled by the lightning's penetrating poison, constantly blocked Suzumiya Musashi's attack path. Faced with the T-Kui clan's counterattack, Suzumiya Musashi didn't seem to care much. The Black Thunder's side effects were certainly troublesome for him, but this was no time to hesitate. Zuo oxygen of the 8 gates of ninjutsu brought his entire state to its peak. A powerful chakra surged through his body, and overwhelming power erupted from his hands and feet. Every second, every moment, was a fighting opportunity that could not be wasted. As for the Emperor Viper's poison and lightning methods, he entrusted them to his body's chakra. A surge of green light appeared around him. It was the powerful energy of the 8 gates. At the same time, yin-yang escape chakra mingled, forming a special protection on the surface of his body. As strong as the thunder armor in terms of physical defense, but surprisingly effective at resisting the Emperor Viper's thunder power. As for the lightning poison that bypassed his body's protective energy and acted upon him, he simply ignored it for the time being. Fighting. Attacking. Aside from that, he didn't care about the details. It was better to think about moving forward and stopping. In the cave with unparalleled power, the sharpness and ferocity of a physical ninja were taken to the extreme by him at that moment. Boom, 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 boom. No Emperor Viper could be his match. Eyes. Too many of our kind have died. When? Over the years, have so many members of the Diga clan lost their comrades? In the past, they had only come into contact with the ninjas of the Land of Lightning. In this maritime region, they have been the overlords for thousands of years. Perhaps the number of their kind who died in battle each year wasn't as high as the number who died during sex. No. For thousands of years, the Emperor Viper clan hadn't experienced such tragic sacrifices. He raised his head and let out roars from his catfish mouth. It's a long story, but only a few minutes passed. The fierce and ferocious punches and kicks continued, and as the fight raged on, Suzumiya Musashi gradually noticed the changes. In the grotto, the Emperor Snake, 10 meters deep, gradually disappeared. Under the protection of the Great Emperor Snake, these Emperor Snakes seemed to be safe and evacuated. Some of which reached up to 20 meters in length. With the arrival of this group of enormous Emperor Serpents, the battle situation began to shift. Suzumiya Musashi could no longer defeat the enemy with just his fists and feet. Bang! With a dull thud, Suzumiya Musashi clutched his chest with his hands and was struck by a massive, long tail, sending him flying backward. At the same time, a dense black lightning bolt followed closely behind, like a worm on his tarsus. Suzumiya Musashi dared not let his guard down. He endured the pain of the opponent's attack and twisted his body with force. Vigorous chakra energy enveloped him completely, and he narrowly dodged the opponent's thunderous attack. However, just after overcoming one obstacle, another appeared. Continuous thunder and black water began to unleash increasingly powerful attacks against him. Suzumiya Musashi's situation worsened once again. With a flash of light on his face, he looked at the newly arrived Emperor Serpent. It was different from the 10-meter or even 30.5-meter Emperor Viper. The 30.5-meter Emperor Viper wasn't much different in size from the common python. The 10-meter-long Emperor Snake, with a waist as thick as a bucket, would start to feel oppressive because of its size. Every gulp and spit produced a thunderous, throbbing black stream. The patterns on its body were also different from those of common Emperor Snakes. Faintly, the patterns were no longer dark gray, and faint purple lines could be seen, which looked mysterious and dangerous. The most striking feature was its head. It had a couple of suspicious bumps on its forehead. It couldn't tell if they were tumors or horns that had never grown. It's becoming increasingly outrageous, Suzumiya Musashi sighed. Chapter 268 Chapter 7. He had originally thought all emperor eels were large, less than 10 meters long. Unexpectedly, the size of his opponent kept increasing, and now there was a 20-meter Emperor Viper. He even suspected that if he continued fighting, the opponent would produce a 30 or 40-meter Emperor Snake. By then, wouldn't they have scales and horns growing on their bodies? Although he had doubts, Suzumiya Musashi didn't stop. If another, larger member of the same species appeared, he would seriously reconsider his plan to destroy the cave. But now, the 8 gates were still capable of fighting. 8 gates of ninjutsu, 7th gate. Open, boom, Waves of air rose. A powerful aura surged from Suzumiya Musashi's body. Although his size was insignificant compared to the large emperor snakes, his power momentarily exhausted them all. A blue vapor rose. Along with the terrifying energy fluctuations, the thunder and black water surrounding Nojiri Musashi were swept away once more. A void with a radius of tens of meters appeared around Suzumiya Musashi. Ang! A loud cry rang out from the emperor snake, and the next instant, bolts of thunder gathered and tangled, roaring towards Suzumiya Musashi. This time, Suzumiya Musashi didn't use his speed to dodge. He stood upright, his training suit swaying continuously with the energy fluctuations in his body. Then, he looked at the group of emperor snakes in front of him and the thunder attacking him, and a flash of light shone in his eyes. Infinite power erupted from his body, and he suddenly raised his hands forward. Hirotora, boom, the invisible air vibrated in a tangible attack. Suzumiya Musashi launched his attack. The sky and earth within the cave seemed to stand still for an instant, and then a mighty roar erupted like a model. Black water spread. Thunder receded. Whether thunder or physical form, all recoiled under this extreme and unprecedented physical assault. The fierce wind swirled debris, and waves of air shook the trembling stone walls. Roars, and no headache-inducing thunder of black water. It was as if, after a blow from the day tiger, the cave had been suddenly cleansed. Suzumiya Musashi gazed into the distance. Due to its attack, the Emperor Viper was pushed back. The weaker ones crashed against the stone walls, shattering and piercing them or creating a deep, long pit from which the Emperor Serpent's blood oozed. As for the stronger ones, although the day tiger's air pressure attack caused them some trouble, it was far from fatal. Suzumiya Musashi took a deep breath, gathered strength in his hands, and felt the yin seal constantly replenishing and repairing itself. He planned to try again to satisfy himself. When I am satiated, I will use the power of the seventh gate to finish off the Emperor Serpent that is still moving. This is what he thinks and does. Inhale, gather strength, prepare, attack. Watch out. A sharp shout came from far behind. Hearing this familiar voice, Suzumiya Musashi unconsciously stopped. Then, his body suddenly trembled, and the hair in his skin stood on end. A feeling of mortal danger overwhelmed him. He didn't have time to think about it. The instinct to encounter danger made Suzumiya Musashi writhe instantly, and the day tiger that was preparing to attack the group of Emperor Vipers rushed back. The one who shouted to Suzumiya Musashi to be careful was Yukito. When Suzumiya Musashi fought Kurako Reiji, she stared at him unblinkingly. When Kurako Reiji escaped and Suzumiya Musashi gave chase, Yukito, amazed by her strength but worried at the same time, followed. Then, from afar, she saw the battle between Suzumiya Musashi and Tikayu. As the battle raged on, her concern for Suzumiya Musashi grew. The Hokage had mentioned that the Tikayu clan was far more troublesome than the Blacklight Guards. Don't make enemies of them, but Suzumiya Musashi confronted her without hesitation, and she didn't know how to intervene for even a moment. The only thing you can do is follow them and be ready to act when the other is in danger. More and more Emperor Vipers arrived, each one larger than the last. She planned to attack and take Suzumiya Musashi away. Unexpectedly, Suzumiya Musashi's strength surged once more. The black tattoo on the other person's body was extremely strange, unlike the bright yellow patterns she had seen before, but it was undoubtedly an extremely powerful method. She thought this was Suzumiya Musashi's last trump card. But she hadn't expected that, as Emperor Kyuji grew stronger, Suzumiya Musashi would again use a method that shocked her. The chakra vapor that kept emanating from the other party's body was so powerful that even she was astonished. He's simply not human. In this state, Suzumiya Musashi still had the upper hand even against a large Emperor Viper. But at that moment, she noticed something was wrong. After Suzumiya Musashi cleared the field in one fell swoop, a 2-meter-long imperial snake floated slowly and deliberately behind her. This Emperor Viper, we can probably say it's the Emperor Viper. From a distance, it looked like a 2-meter-long body with the same catfish-like head. The difference was that this Emperor snake was not only tiny, but it also seemed to have a different color, as if it had mutated, and the patterns on its body were an unusual shade of purple. Furthermore, two things were growing from its head. I didn't know what they were. The wooden man felt uneasy. However, regardless of how strange this Emperor snake was, it shouldn't be good for it to be stealthily approaching Suzumiya Musashi. The purple-striped Emperor Viper suddenly accelerated. Suddenly, a beam shot towards Suzumiya Musashi's back. At the same time, its mouth opened and closed, and a black beam with a faint purple light shot towards Suzumiya Musashi. The group ignored the warning and insisted on coming here to do evil. But the sentence remained the same. This was their man. Even if it meant revealing her identity, even if the Hokage or even the daimyo reprimanded and interrogated her, she could only leave it behind for the time being. She wasn't lovesick, she simply didn't want her young, strong, handsome, and limitlessly promising lover in a dark cave like this. Boom! The air surge attack was a bit tasty. The strength of the seventh gate allowed Suzumiya Musashi to unleash the power of the Day Tiger. The powerful blast of pressurized air instantly headed toward the source of the crisis. It was at that moment that Suzumiya Musashi finally saw the origin of the danger. As soon as the other person appeared before her eyes, several questions arose in her mind. No, are you serious? Chapter 269, Purple Striped Emperor Viper, Horrid Thunder Venom. When Suzumiya Musashi saw the source of the danger, he felt a little confused. Due to the short distance, he could clearly see the other person's appearance even in the dim light. An imperial viper. About 2 meters long. Striking purple lines covered its dark skin. What surprised him most was its head. It obviously had more wrinkles on its head, resembling that of a catfish, compared to other emperor snakes. Its horns were half a foot long. Suzumiya Musashi confirmed that he hadn't been mistaken. There really were a pair of things similar to dragon horns growing from the other person's head. Had it transformed into a dragon or mutated? Suzumiya Musashi didn't know. However, seeing the other person's appearance clearly, the sense of danger in his heart didn't lessen, but rather intensified. The wave of the Day Tiger roared. At the same time, the Emperor Viper in front of him opened its mouth, spat out a thunderclap, and unleashed a bolt of lightning. There was a hint of purple in the black thunder. Thunder and Day Tiger collided with a loud crash. Before Suzumiya Musashi's astonished eyes, the lightning bolt transformed into a beam, like a black iron mortar hand, that sliced through the air and continued hurtling toward him at unprecedented speed. The fluctuations of chakra on the surface of his body, mixed with the protective energy of yin-yang escape, could not be blocked for even an instant and were pierced by the thunder. It struck him in the abdomen. The moment he was hit by the thunder, Suzumiya Musashi felt a numbness. It was as if an anesthesiologist had given him an injection in the stomach, causing numbness and tingling. His mouth. There's no other reason, I'm just embarrassed. He pursed his lips and teeth, and a cold sweat instantly broke out on his body. His face was pale as he endured the torture emanating from his body. He wanted to calm himself, but found he couldn't. Under the ravages of thunder's power, his body's muscles suffered severe damage. The opposing side failed to capitalize on his loss of control to launch a sneak attack. To be precise, it was the inability to launch an attack. His thunder pierced through Suzumiya Musashi's Day Tiger's attack and struck the enemy. But he himself wasn't so lucky. When the Day Tiger's attack arrived, it was like a ball crushed by immense force. It crushed large members of its species in its path, then embedded itself deep into the stone wall. The roar resounded, and gravel splattered. The Day Tiger's terrifying roar echoed continuously in the cave space for a while. The rest of the Emperor Snakes didn't care at all about the ruined cave, but instead gathered around the purple-striped Emperor Snake. Clan leader, cough. A harsh cough was heard. From the periphery, the Emperor Snake couldn't see the clan leader, embedded deep within the stone wall, and could only hear the intermittent voice from the other side. First, kill that person first. As soon as he finished speaking, the Emperor Snakes turned their heads one after another, their large and small eyes locking onto Suzumiya Musashi. At that moment, the opponent was half kneeling on the ground, unable to attack, his eyes filled with pain. Take advantage of his weakness and kill him. That thought crossed Emperor Ki's mind. A massive imperial snake suddenly swiveled its long tail and lunged at Suzumiya Musashi with a roar. I want you to die. Its body, thicker than a water tank, rumbled across the ground, scattering gravel everywhere. The Emperor Viper's eyes were wide open and filled with ferocity. He wanted to use his powerful body to crush the opponent to death. Aren't you good at physical prowess? With a single blow, I'll use the mighty body of the Emperor Viper clan to kill you. Boom! The enormous figure continued advancing. As it drew ever closer to Suzumiya Musashi, it failed to notice a dark blue figure stealthily approaching from behind. The fiery claw rose silently and slammed into the back of his neck. Bang! The massive Emperor Viper crashed headfirst into the air. The ground exploded with a deafening roar. Stunned by the sudden attack, the Emperor Viper was initially disoriented, then erupted in unbridled fury. It raised its head in a rage and looked ahead, only to see a dark blue silhouette. Its body was as agile and swift as a civet. After several takeoffs and landings, it had already opened up a considerable distance. It glanced in the direction where Suzumiya Musashi had been standing, as if it had sensed something, but could find no sign of the figure. Damn it! He really does have henchmen. Chase him! A loud shout came from the Emperor Snake behind them. Immediately afterward, more than a dozen Emperor Vipers surged forward and began pursuing the dark blue figure in the direction it had escaped. One group fled, the other chased, and the speed of both was terrifying. However, this was, after all, Diga clan territory. Youmuran wasn't very familiar with this place either. With the Emperor Viper clan relentlessly pursuing her, she could only cling tightly to her man and run forward in a panic. Hurry! As long as we get out of here, every day from now on will be beautiful. Seeing how hard I tried to save him, the little man must be very touched. When the time comes, just beg with your finger and the other side will be very happy. With wondrous visions in his mind, the wooden man released the restrictions of the Two Tails chakra and unleashed his speed at full force, leaving a trail of faint blue phantoms in the cave. As she fled, Suzumiya Musashi, who was in his arms, didn't stand idly by either. Of course, it wasn't something suitable for all ages, not to mention that Yukito was in his tailed beast transformation state and didn't have the necessary conditions. The pain of Emperor Kyuji's thunder eroding his body prevented him from worrying about the difference between men and women. Cold sweat ran down his body, soaking his training clothes. His face was pale, and he curled up in the wooden man's arms, trembling all over. Inside, the powerful force of the thunder continued to roar, destroying his muscle tissue and eroding his chakra. The purple-striped Emperor Viper's thunder attack was completely different from the thunder power of other Emperor Vipers. The thunder power that invaded his body, or thunder poison, was even more merciless. His body tissues were rapidly destroyed, and his chakra, encountering the lightning poison, retreated as if witnessing something terrible. Suzumiya Musashi endured the intense pain, and his body's chakra began to flow under his control. The yin-yang released chakra continued to accumulate, finally condensing into the power of the sealing technique in a familiar way. Runes began to form, connecting and moving across the surface of his body. Then, step by step, he followed the chakra circulation within his body and reached a location where the thunder poison roared with fury. The next instant, the sealing technique emerged. Suzumiya Musashi held his breath, awaiting the outcome. Chapter 270 Youmuran, Run Away with My Man. Beneath Suzumiya Musashi's nervous expression, the sealing technique's power finally made contact with the lightning poison. Leidu's reaction was somewhat strange, like rejection, like doubt. Compared to ordinary chakra, the sealing technique's power seemed different from lightning poison, and it didn't corrode or destroy it. Leidu's reaction gave him a glimmer of hope. The sealing technique was like a girl reluctant to accept. When the attempted attack wasn't repelled, the next second, it lunged at him with great enthusiasm. Tisk-tisk, the two forces intertwined, pushing and pulling. Under the sudden and ferocious onslaught of the sealing technique, Leidu panicked. He seemed to realize the situation wasn't in his favor and slowly began to struggle and retreat. The sealing technique's energy wouldn't yield an iota. Whether you resist or disagree, since you can't do anything to me, I'll devour you no matter what. The thunder poison began to spread through his body, closely followed by the power of the sealing technique. As the two forces were at a standstill, the one suffering the most was, of course, Suzumiya Musashi himself. Every time the lightning poison moved, it was like a red-hot iron coursing through his body. If it weren't for the presence of Guji and the wooden man, his cries of pain might have been uncontrollable again. But even though he clamped his mouth shut to stifle a scream, the observant Youmuran noticed his abnormality. Sensing the unnatural spasms of the man in her arms, she fled, asking anxiously, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" Suzumiya Musashi frowned and said intermittently, "I'm fine. I'm fine, it's just a twinge in my side." Youmuran also knew that the man in her arms was holding her. But she had no other choice for the time being, as the Emperor Serpent continued to pursue her closely. Everything would have to wait until she escaped. What she didn't know was that Suzumiya Musashi couldn't wait any longer. Every second the lightning poison coursed through her body was immense torment. Moreover, wherever it spread, Her tissues began to destroy. If this continued, her body would likely be riddled with holes. She would never allow this to happen. The next instant, she silently brought a piece of her training clothes to her mouth and bit down on it. With a flash of cruelty in her eyes, Suzumiya Musashi gritted her teeth and mobilized all her abilities. At that moment, she mobilized all her strength, both mental and physical, to perform the sealing technique. Poison to the front. You try to refuse, but you still want to accept, don't you? You refuse to accept, don't you? Why not? Come in hard. Boom. A dull thump seemed to emanate from within his body. No matter how much the thunder poison struggled and leaped, the power of the sealing technique relentlessly pursued him. Chasing, surrounding, subduing, and enveloping him. Suzumiya Musashi's face paled terrifyingly, and sweat quickly soaked his clothes. He squeezed his eyes shut and controlled the power of the sealing technique. After a while, he opened his eyes. His eyes reflected the exhaustion of having survived such a disaster. He exhaled deeply, as if to release all the pain. The sealing technique had been a success. The lightning poison in his body was finally subdued by the ferocious discharge of the sealing technique. Some of the poison remained in his abdomen and chest. A small portion was also sealed in a corner of his heart. A look of relief flashed in Suzumiya Musashi's eyes. Just a little, just a little. If he hadn't activated the sealing technique so desperately, if it had been even a second slower, the lightning poison would have completely corroded his heart. At that moment, life and death would be unpredictable. Are you finished? Yumu's worried voice echoed in my ears. He sensed the change in Suzumiya Musashi. After sweating profusely and becoming drenched, the man in his arms seemed to stop trembling. Not yet, Suzumiya Musashi replied wearily. The lightning poison was only temporarily dormant, thanks to his efforts to maintain the sealing technique. Once he relaxed with strength, the lightning poison would return to wreak havoc. That's fine, as long as you don't die, Yumu said. I'm very worried that you'll die here before we escape, and then I'll have wasted 10 years in vain. What's missing? Suzumiya Musashi asked, puzzled. We've lost a powerful opponent. Yumu looked away. The pursuers hadn't completely given up, so it wasn't the time to insist. Suzumiya Musashi didn't delve into Yukido's thoughts either. Although the thunder poison had been temporarily suppressed by the sealing technique, they weren't safe yet. Hearing the sound of the Emperor Viper's pursuit in the distance, his thoughts shifted. That won't work. Now he's a burden. If the thunder poison can't be completely eliminated, he probably won't be able to escape the encirclement, even if he keeps running like this. Besides, he doesn't like being a burden to others. After a moment, an idea occurred to Suzumiya Musashi. He looked at Yukido and said, relax. Yumu didn't hear him well. What? He shouted louder. I said run slower. He's too unstable. Yumu was stunned for a moment, then rolled his eyes. It's enough that I can escape with you in my arms, but you dare to demand more stability from me? If you weren't so handsome, I would have taught you a lesson. No matter, after all, he's my man, so I can ask a few things of you. Thinking to himself, Yumu unconsciously increased his chakra output. As his strength became more stable, his figure as he fled also stabilized. Only then was Suzumiya Musashi satisfied. He closed his eyes and began to concentrate, focusing all his attention on the lightning poison trapped in his body by the sealing technique. It wasn't that he was asking for too much, but he had to be extremely careful in the next operation. The lightning poison adhered to the organs in his abdomen and the edges of his heart. And he couldn't move for a while. Dense runes, like black lines, enveloped the lightning poison and imprisoned him. Suzumiya Musashi took a deep breath, and the next second, more power began to surge. More runes rushed toward the lightning poison, as if they saw a trapped body, launched themselves all at once, and pounced on him one after another. As more and more sealing techniques were added, one seal overlapped another, and the surface of the thunder poison was gradually completely covered with the sealing techniques, leaving no gaps. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 271 Don't be stubborn, hold me tight. After the lightning poison was completely covered by the sealing technique, Suzumiya Musashi's chakra shifted once more. A trail of wind attribute chakra generated within his body, condensing into tiny wind blades as thick as a hair. Then, The wind blades began to slice across his body. He constantly controlled the formation of the tiny wind blades and cut them gently. It was a constant, vivid pain. It came so clearly and directly, as if he himself were being tortured. The good news was that the lightning poison also had a slight anesthetic effect, which eased his pain. The blades finally dissipated. Suzumiya Musashi paused for a moment, and then golden chains extended across his body and connected to the sealing technique that had trapped the lightning poison. At the same time, a larger wind blade condensed in his chest. Puff, a soft sound. The brilliant light of the wind blade pierced Suzumiya Musashi's chest, creating a cloud of blood. Her training uniform was also slashed, as was her chest. Such a sudden change startled Youmuran. What happened? What's wrong with you? Is this the Emperor Serpent's trick? No. Suzumiya Musashi gritted her teeth to stabilize the sealing technique within her body and said in a trembling voice, "Relax." Yukito finally understood why Suzumiya Musashi had made such a strange request. It was obvious the other party was using dangerous methods on her. She did her best to control her body to lessen the blows and asked worriedly, "Can I help?" "I can't help you," Suzumiya Musashi said, "but it will be ready soon." Then she let out a muffled groan. Phew, blood gushed out. Amidst a flash of golden light, a large mass of black substance was pulled from Suzumiya Musashi's body by chains. Judging by its shape, there were intestines, liver, pork belly, and half of something else that wasn't clear. The wooden man watched intently and soon his eyes widened. That thing was clearly a piece of heart. "You?" Suddenly, he lowered his head and looked at Suzumiya Musashi. "You didn't commit suicide, did you?" "I'm fine." Suzumiya Musashi guessed what he was going to say and replied softly. The massive blood loss had worsened his condition even further. Luckily, his face had been pale for a while, so it wasn't too obvious. The blood loss and organ damage weren't fatal for him. Perhaps for ordinary ninjas, a severe heart attack meant almost certain death. But he was different. He possessed the yin seal, a technique he had learned from Tsunade. It could be said to be the superior sealing technique, and also the superior medical ninjutsu. As the yin seal's energy was rapidly released, a large amount of chakra flowed into the damaged tissues and organs of the body. Recovering. Youmuran was surprised to find that the seriously injured man in her arms seemed to be recovering at a dizzying speed. "What kind of tricks are you using?" Suzumiya Musashi regained his strength to speak and said, "Yin seal, yin seal." Youmuran was a little confused. This yin seal seemed really powerful. The person who seemed to be on the verge of death recovered incredibly fast. She suddenly thought that Suzumiya Musashi seemed to have too many tricks up his sleeve. Okay, considering the impressive strength he displayed in the previous battle with me. The magical abilities that the other group possessed were rare in the ninja world. There was also ninjutsu. It seemed like a really impressive yin seal. Especially now. That technique that suddenly erupted with such force, I didn't know if it was a physical technique or something else. He ran, and after a while, he felt that something was wrong. Yin seal. It sounded familiar. As I was thinking, the movement behind me was approaching again. Youmuran suddenly became nervous and didn't care about anything else. The seal's energy had been depleted, at least escape wasn't an issue. "Don't move." Youmuran hugged Suzumiya Musashi, who was trying to break free, and said sternly, "You've just seriously injured yourself. Don't try to be brave, hold me tight, there's a fork in the road." Suzumiya Musashi. He wasn't being brave. He just found it a little strange being in a woman's arms while running for his life, even though this woman was now in her beastly state with half a tail. The pursuers were getting closer and closer, and Youmuran was getting a little nervous. Seeing a fork in the road, he threw himself into it without thinking. Youmuran didn't realize that as she rushed toward the fork in the road with Suzumiya Musashi in her hand, the imperial snakes chasing her suddenly stopped. They stared at each other in bewilderment and astonishment. After a moment, one emperor snake finally spoke. "What do we do?" They actually ran right in. The other emperor snake shook his head and said, "I don't know either, let's wait for the chief." Soon after, a 6-foot-long imperial viper with purple stripes arrived surrounded by a pack of other imperial vipers. Its movements were somewhat slow, as if it hadn't yet recovered from the damage inflicted by the day tiger. "Chief, they came in this way," said one emperor snake, pointing to the fork in the path where the wooden man had stabbed. The leader of the Diga tribe looked at the fork in the road, and a hint of relief crossed his wrinkled face. "Go." Scattered, asked one emperor snake doubtfully. "Chief, they broke into the ancestral land. Will they be alright?" As the other emperors looked at him in surprise, the emperor who had spoken added hurriedly, "I'm worried about the ancestral land." "Nothing to worry about," the emperor asked. "But, clan leader, don't we need to confirm this again?" The emperor snake tribe leader replied, "No need. Once they enter, they won't come out. It's different for you. You're from the emperor viper clan, and your life won't be in danger if you enter the ancestral land, but humans are different. No human who has entered the ancestral land has ever come out alive, so don't worry." With that, the emperor who tribe leader turned and walked back, ordering, "Go and find the dead of your tribe, tell them that their ancestors have already avenged those who killed them. Humans who anger the noble emperor viper never come to a good end." Chapter 272 Energy Fluctuations in Caves. The other side. The wooden man grabbed Suzumiya Musashi and ran toward an unfamiliar intersection. He ran for a good while without looking back, until even his wooden man-tailed beast transformation couldn't withstand the exhaustion, and he finally slowed down. It was then that he realized his pursuers seemed to have vanished. Though he didn't know why they hadn't caught up, it was still a good thing. He stopped sensing anything and, after confirming time and again that there was no movement behind him, he ended his tailed beast transformation. The dark blue chakra slowly diminished, and his form began to shrink. After regaining his human form, he slowly lowered Suzumiya Musashi. "Are you alright?" I'm fine," Suzumiya Musashi replied, sounding distracted. "Good," the wooden man collapsed to the ground and said, "They probably didn't catch us." Suzumiya Musashi said nothing. After a moment, Yumuran noticed something was wrong and frowned. "Are you really alright? If you have any questions, let me know." Suzumiya Musashi shook his head. He felt his mind wasn't as sharp as usual. The lightning poison in his body had been eliminated along with the tissues by his sealing technique, and the remaining wounds had also healed under the effect of the yin seal. Strong, but real, hasn't the lightning poison been cleared? Suzumiya Musashi couldn't help but guess in his heart. The lightning poison from the purple-striped Emperor Viper a moment ago was truly overwhelming. The lightning poison from an ordinary Emperor Viper was enough to give him a headache, and the lightning poison from the purple-striped Emperor Viper a moment ago nearly killed him. A cage-level opponent. Especially when the seventh gate of the 8 gates of ninjutsu, taijutsu, jinjutsu, and ninjutsu is opened. The power level had surpassed that of ordinary attribute ninjutsu. There was also a difference in strength. Let's take chakra as an example. As a technique passed down by the Otsutsuki clan in the ninja world, the highest level is, of course, the Kagui lineage level. Below that are a small number of lineage levels and the Inoki lineage level. Among these chakra techniques, sealing is a relatively special system. As a yin-yang tsukashi ninjutsu that relies heavily on talent and heritage, sealing techniques hold a very high status in the ninja world. More generally, they can seal an enemy's chakra, objects, and energy. The most advanced can seal souls and tailed beasts. It can be said that a strong sealer can use their sealing abilities against most enemies. The Uzumaki clan was effective against most enemies. They were besieged and destroyed by various forces due to their extremely high talents and insect-like sealing abilities. But today, when faced with a purple-striped Emperor Viper's thunder poison, his sealing technique had a matched, even repulsive, reaction. In the end, he relied on the sheer amount of chakra in the yin seal to powerfully suppress it, and finally contained the poison, even at the cost of tearing out part of his liver and tissues. It was far more difficult than Amaterasu, who sealed Uchiha Itachi. Had it been another cage-level ninja, he would likely have died from his opponent's lightning poison. Suzumiya Musashi was worried that the method he had just used hadn't completely eliminated the poison, so he checked himself again before the pursuers arrived. But no matter how he felt, there were no other changes in his body except for a strange tingling sensation. After using my mental power to perceive, I found nothing wrong. Is there something I've missed? Suzumiya Musashi thought. He released the remaining yin seal to conserve chakra. Then, he calmed himself and continued to sense himself. Time passed minute by minute. In the end, Suzumiya Musashi found nothing wrong with his body. Moreover, as time passed, the tingling sensation in his body gradually disappeared and became a feeling of yearning. A desire for power. At the same time, he felt a calling. The body yearned not only for its desire but for the power of summoning. In Musashi's spiritual perception, there seemed to be an enormous ball of energy in front of him, emitting an extreme attraction. What is that in front of me? Suzumiya Musashi opened his eyes and looked in the direction of the energy fluctuations. In his spiritual perception, the enormous energy that extended in front of him seemed to be like the golden pool in the geomagnetic magic swamp, emitting strong and pure energy fluctuations. A sense of vigilance immediately arose in his heart. Due to his lack of intelligence, he acted rashly in the geomagnetic demon swamp and sealed the golden liquid, putting Uzumaki Karin and the others in danger. Now, similar energy fluctuations occurred again, and he immediately remembered the lesson from last time: don't be blinded. The more valuable something is, the harder it is to obtain. Behind seemingly tempting rewards lie enormous dangers and side effects. Reward yourself as well. What are you looking at? Youmuren asked curiously, seeing him staring into the distance. Did you feel it? Youmuren was astonished. What did you feel? Are you being chased? No, Suzumiya Musashi replied. Energy fluctuations. There's an extremely pure energy fluctuation ahead. He turned to the wooden man and asked hesitantly, don't you feel it? As a perfect Jinchuriki, a powerful ninja who coexists peacefully with the tailed beasts, with Yukido's strength, he shouldn't be unable to perceive such obvious energy fluctuations. Yumuto was also a little perplexed upon hearing Suzumiya Musashi's words. She stopped thinking and felt it, then shook her head slightly after a while. I don't feel it, there are no special fluctuations. Then, she changed the subject and said, but you're much stronger than me. Perhaps you're the only one who felt it. Saying this, she gave an affirmative smile. Ren. You've already fought to the death before. Even though we've fought side by side, you don't have to smile so happily, do you? Putting those strange thoughts behind him, Suzumiya Musashi continued to perceive the energy fluctuations coming from afar. He was certain he had sensed them. Powerful, pure, stable. Waves of movement, like the breath of the sea, flooded his spirit. Chapter 273 Resistance. Two possibilities. First, he was the son of destiny. God had finally blessed him, and only he could perceive the inexplicable energy fluctuations that were coming, while the wooden man had no way of seeing them. The moment this supposition arose in his mind, Suzumiya Musashi felt it was a little ridiculous, and then dismissed the idea without hesitation. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. The experiences of his past life and this life tell him that he is just an ordinary person. There is no such thing as destiny, no such thing as God's favor. His parents were happy because he had finally started school. The teacher was kind and asked him to help correct the homework. The tutor's smile meant that he had been asked to finish his manuscript during the holidays. If a beautiful woman starts talking to you, it means you're setting a trap, a cash register, or a wine ticket seller. If not, then it must be the biochemical matrix. There is no sudden happiness, no cake falling from the sky. There are only enormous man-made traps, one after another. And he's always one of the majority. Therefore, the reason he could sense the energy fluctuations wasn't by divine favor. Nor was it because his perception far surpassed that of Yukido, a perfect Jinchuriki. So, only the second possibility remains. What he sensed was false. Perhaps it was the influence of the lightning poison that made him intensely crave the energy fluctuations in the distance. And the future must be very dangerous. The fact that the Emperor Viper clan didn't pursue us is proof of that. Realizing this, Suzumiya Musashi looked at Yukido and said, let's go, Youmuren. Go? Where to? Go back, said Suzumiya Musashi. Under the gaze of the wooden man, who was staring at him like a fool, he said earnestly, go and see why they didn't catch up with us. If they're still here, this isn't a good place. If he's not here, let's take another route, Yukido. But, Suzumiya Musashi, the Emperor didn't pursue us, this is their nest. With their speed, it's impossible that we couldn't catch them. Then why didn't they catch us? Or perhaps there's something here they don't want to face, or perhaps they think we're going to die here. After hearing Suzumiya Musashi's analysis, Yukido's expression turned serious. What Suzumiya Musashi said made sense. He hadn't paid attention to it at the time, but now that he thought about it carefully, the matter was full of doubt. He looked at Suzumiya Musashi and said affirmatively, alright, let's go back. Suzumiya Musashi admired Yukido's determination. After analyzing the reasons, he acted decisively and quickly. After obtaining the other party's consent, Suzumiya Musashi took the initiative and began walking back the way he had come, closely followed by the wooden man. The footsteps of people, the only sound the constant dripping of water condensing on the stone wall. Suzumiya Musashi suppressed the desire within him and did his best not to think about the source of energy that stretched out behind him. However, as the distance increased, an overwhelming sense of loss washed over him. It was as if something more important than life itself was gradually slipping away. Musashi repeated this to himself. This is the method of the Emperor Viper clan. It's a trap, he shouted in his mind. But no matter how hard he tried to convince me otherwise, the emotions in my heart only intensified. I tried to banish the chaotic voices in my mind. But it was in vain. Desire, longing, yearning. The fluctuating power only made his desire stronger. Two voices battled within me. A voice said, "Go back. Go back quickly. Go find the source of the energy fluctuations. That's your godson. No destiny, no luck. It's a trap. A trap to confuse you." The two voices kept clashing and tangling together. Suzumiya Musashi's head was throbbing slightly. He did his best to maintain his composure. But I began to feel fear in my heart. My body felt poisoned, and I increasingly craved the energy fluctuations that enveloped me. Fluctuation. It's like being crushed by tremendous force. It's like poison coagulating in your throat as it pours into your mouth. I always feel reluctant, but I can't change the outcome. He clenched his fists tightly, and blood trickled from between his fingers. Trying to figure out what was wrong, he accidentally bumped into the back of Suzumiya Musashi, who had stopped. Luckily, the cushioning was very good, and neither of us was hurt. "Ah!" the wooden man let out a long-planned shout. "What's wrong? Why did you stop?" The wooden man spoke softly. But there was no expected response. Under his puzzled gaze, Suzumiya Musashi slowly turned around. His eyes were blood red. "Ah!" he exclaimed, and panicked. "What's wrong with you? Your eyes, and your hands," the wooden man said, his voice trailing off. I saw Suzumiya Musashi's fists clench, blood dripping from them. His eyes were bloodshot, and veins bulged near his ears, as if he were locked in a painful struggle. Suzumiya Musashi looked at Yukito, a complex expression flashing in his blood-red eyes. With a hint of struggle, he said, "No, that's not right, run." With that, Suzumiya Musashi closed his mouth. At that moment, his hands slowly loosened, and the struggle in his eyes vanished. There was an eerie calm in those bloodshot eyes. Then, without even glancing at the wooden man, he turned with a determined stride and walked back. He headed toward the source of the energy fluctuations. "Don't go." Suzumiya Musashi was clearly unwell and reached out to grab him. However, Suzumiya Musashi was stronger. After being seized, he simply raised his hand and shook off the wooden man's grasp. Murin couldn't help but feel annoyed, but seeing that Suzumiya Musashi seemed to have lost his mind, he had to put aside his sadness at being left behind. Then, he activated his chakra. As strong as the dead man was, he could still be stronger than the tailed beast when it lost its sanity. Chapter 274 Spherical Space and Energy. Yolv, I was careless. But before he could pounce, Suzumiya Musashi's speed suddenly increased. At first, he was walking, but in the blink of an eye, he was trotting. Then, he broke into a wild run. In the narrow corridor, Suzumiya Musashi began to gallop. His eyes peered through the air toward the source of energy, and there was nothing else. "This isn't right," Yumu thought to herself. At that moment, Yalu shared her feelings with her. Yolv said, "I don't know either. Judging by his appearance, he must be under control," the wooden man said, "but it shouldn't be like that. What kind of illusion can control him without him even realizing it?" "You can't even find me," Muren said anxiously. "Besides, he said he found a powerful energy fluctuation right in front of you. Did you find him?" Yolv, "No." Upon hearing Matadabe's words, Yukito became convinced that the energy fluctuations Suzumiya Musashi perceived must be an illusion. An immortal species that had existed since the time of the Sage of Six Paths also possessed the confidence and pride of tailed beasts. In the ninja world, there was an energy they couldn't perceive, so how could it possibly be easy to find? Muto and Matadabe communicated constantly, closely following Suzumiya Musashi. The cave passage was winding and complex. Suzumiya Musashi was running faster and faster, as if he had a radar. She was affected and couldn't catch up for a while. She could only stay close behind and remain prepared. If Suzumiya Musashi actually fell into a trap, she could rescue him immediately. In the passage, the two walked single file, passing through several bends and forks. Then, ahead of them, at the end of the passage, a faint light appeared. I stepped out of the corridor. My eyes snapped open. Up. My feet were suddenly suspended in midair. The bright light was a little dazzling, so the wooden man squinted slightly to let his eyes adjust. His figure lurched forward, and he took a moment to observe his surroundings. The next second, his eyes widened in surprise. This was a vast underground space. It lay on the central horizontal line of the spherical space. At first glance, it was extremely open. Of course, what surprised him wasn't the shape, but what was inside. Above the spherical space was fluoride, covering the entire sky. The bright light coalesced into a single mass, and for a moment he couldn't tell if it was a piece of fluoride or if the entire dome was made of fluoride. Intense fluctuations of thunder energy enveloped the entire dome. Beneath the spherical space, a black liquid flowed constantly. It was very similar to the liquid filled with thunder power they had seen before. The difference was that the black liquid seen before, like flowing water, sank into the cave's ravines, and only, when the Emperor Serpent controlled it, did it rise into the sky. Here, the black liquid clearly separated from the fluoride and adhered to the bottom of the spherical space. The constantly moving black liquid flowed back and forth at the bottom of the 1,000-meter radius spherical space, forming a huge hemispherical depression. It was like the lower hemisphere of the space, absorbing the black liquid and flowing it in a specific area. It was also as if affected by a force field, compressing it toward the bottom of the spherical space in a way that didn't conform to the laws of water flow. It was colored and stably suspended in the center of the space. There were mysterious, constantly changing purple lines, and there seemed to be matter slowly flowing inside. The first time she saw the ball, Youmuran knew it was strange. On one hand, this strange, large ball defied gravity and floated abruptly through space. On the other hand, along with its intrusion, an extremely strong repulsive force appeared above her. After rushing out through the entrance, she flew forward. Under the influence of inertia, her speed slowed more and more. The closer she got to the suspended ball, the stronger she felt the repulsive force. Thus, she watched helplessly as Suzumiya Musashi launched himself directly toward the black ball in front of him. As the purple lines on the surface of the ball fluctuated and disappeared, she herself was swiftly flung backward under the influence of the repulsive force. In the spherical space, the effect of gravity weakened to a minimum, and everything seemed to be under the force field of the black ball. The wooden man's figure didn't even fall and was ejected through the small entrance with a whoosh. Damn it, the wooden man cursed. He landed in the corridor and hurried forward again. This time, he reached the entrance and didn't make a hasty retreat. Instead, he clambered up onto the rock wall with both hands and watched intently. Normal. Youmuran stared at the black orb and realized that the energy fluctuations Suzumiya Musashi was perceiving must be 1. She, 2, harbored doubts. At first, she thought the energy fluctuations Suzumiya Musashi was perceiving were his own illusion, otherwise, both he and Matadabi wouldn't have been unable to perceive them. What's going on? Neither of you perceived strong energy fluctuations, so what is this in front of us? Is it possible that what we see with our eyes is also an illusion? Yaolu said nothing. He felt as if he'd been slapped. Speak up. Why be silent? You're a tail beast, yet you can't even sense such an anomaly. He remained silent for a moment and finally spoke. He said weakly, yes. I was careless, forget it. Youmuran was just anxious for the moment and wasn't really dissatisfied with Yaolu. He asked worriedly, what the heck is this black ball? Why was it absorbed? If it was an energy body, why couldn't we sense it? Youmuran was stunned. What does this mean? Matadabi explained, I mean, the energy we usually sense is mostly chakra. But in the ninja world, not all energy is chakra. Yukido. Chapter 275, Suzumiya Musashi's Dilemma due to Mugen's insistence. Yolv, give me an example. Do you remember that man making you wait 2 hours the last time we fought? Youmuran, of course I remember, Yolv said. The other group was absorbing natural energy from nature at that time. For them, natural energy is difficult to perceive. Matadaru sighed. We tailed beasts are very powerful, but only in terms of strength. There are still many magical things in the ninja world. The wooden man asked, what do you mean by strong only in terms of strength? If you're strong in terms of power, doesn't that mean you're strong in every aspect? Let me put it this way. Chakra has only been in the ninja world for 1,000 years. We tailed beasts have existed for even less time. The ninja world existed much longer before this. Those energies that appeared before chakra, those ancient entities, actually have magical and powerful aspects. It's like this black ball in front of me. If I'm not mistaken, its existence should predate the history of ninjas. What she said might be true. It's a powerful energy, but we didn't perceive it before. Yu Ren said, alright, I understand more or less what you said. Now the key is how to rescue my man, rescue the person, Yolf. There's no need to hide anything between you and me. I know you want to talk about your man, Yukiro, he asked anxiously. Do you have any solution? But if you have the guts, you can go in and check it out for yourself, Yukiro. Me, Yolf said. Yes. The wooden man stared at the enormous black ball in front of him. After a moment, determination flashed in his eyes. Okay, I'll go in. She slowly backed away. Then, a dark blue energy surged above her body. Bend your knees, gather your strength, and run. The man quickly approached the black ball in the center of the space. However, the repulsive force that had just acted upon her body reappeared. As she drew closer, the repulsion she felt grew stronger, and her speed slowed. When she was still 30 meters from the black ball, her strength to jump was gone. After a moment's pause, the ball flew again. Puff, she was catapulted back into the corridor, the wooden man's feet planted firmly on the ground, and slid down, leaving 2 obvious footprints. She gritted her teeth and tried again, reluctantly. This time, she retreated even further. Ignoring the sharp rock protruding from the stone wall, she found a ledge that allowed her to gather strength and exerted it once more. Bang! Stones flew beneath her feet. The stone slab suddenly exploded under the enormous force. The wooden man used the recoil and shot off at great speed. This time, his speed was even greater than before. But he still failed to penetrate the black ball. Compared to the previous time, this time the distance to the black ball was shorter, and it finally stopped about 10 meters in front of her. Oh! Returning to the corridor, the wooden man furiously slammed his fist against the rock wall. His attempt a moment ago had already reached the limit of what he could do. With the repulsive force he had just felt, even if he tried again, he wouldn't be able to get through the last 10 meters. The black ball in front of him displayed shifting patterns. His man was inside, and she didn't know what awaited her. Forget it if it doesn't work, Yaolu thought to herself. The power of the repulsion is too strong. At such a long distance, when you get close to the black ball, your strength will be almost exhausted. No matter how hard you try, you won't be able to break through its force field. We can only wait. The wooden man looked at the black ball with his clear eyes and said, that's not necessarily true. Yalu's words only aroused his reluctance to admit defeat. She didn't believe that with her abilities, she would be defenseless against a lifeless object. She studied the black ball from top to bottom, constantly thinking of countermeasures. Finally, her eyes lit up. I've got it. Then, she stepped back again. After a short distance, she started running again. Her slender thighs still touched the ground, and her taut, strong muscles stretched and contracted. She took off like a slender, agile female leopard with an indomitable drive. Her feet tensed and, with a loud thud, hit the ground. Her body flew straight toward the suspended black ball. Her horse's tail fluttered behind her. She stared resolutely at the spot where Suzumiya Musashi had disappeared. Look! I must rescue you. Suzumiya Musashi was completely unaware of the wooden man's situation. At that moment, he had completely lost his perception of the outside world. Since the desire in his heart had grown like a poison, he had lost control of his body when he instinctively rushed toward the source of energy. Even if a trace of consciousness remained in his heart, he was unable to resist this instinctive desire, or rather, resist the grip of this power upon him. He could only rely on his 5 most basic senses to observe the changes in the outside world. He knew that Yu Ren wanted to reach him, but his steps were out of control. He knew he had entered a spherical space, but before he could react, he was absorbed by the black sphere without any resistance. From that moment on, his world was dark. There was no breath, no taste, his ears could not hear, his eyes could not see. The only sensation he had was the familiar pain in his body, deep in his bone marrow. But he couldn't even utter a cry. Perhaps it was. A crack of thunder was emitted, but his ears did not perceive it. Only pain. The power of the thunder began to erode his body. Unlike the Emperor Serpent's previous attack, only a portion of it was damaged. At that moment, his entire body transformed into a massive black ball, and the tremendous power of thunder enveloped him completely. The aching pain emanated from every part of his body. It completely enveloped him, and mixed with the oppressive feeling of losing consciousness, it was enough to drive anyone mad. and he had no choice but to endure it. I can't control my hands or my feet, I can't control my chakra. Even my spiritual awareness is constantly weakened by this force. He did his best to keep his mind clear, even if it intensified the pain. I feel it. My eye sockets hurt. My tooth hurts. It hurts, the power emanated from his skin and flesh, eroding and penetrating him little by little, as if it wanted to disintegrate him completely. Suzumiya Musashi felt like the monkey in the jade bottle. Perhaps at any moment, he would turn into pus beneath this terrifying force. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.